If everyone would stand, we will call this city council meeting to order. At this time, we have a word of silence. Thank you. We'll ask Councilwoman Karen Tina Sams to lead us into the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Thank you and welcome to Georgetown City Council meeting for Monday, March the 23rd, 2026. We are here to conduct business for the city of Georgetown, and we will follow the agenda as written. Madam Clerk, if you will call the roll.
Mrs. Wilkins-Brent.
Here.
Mr. Crisp.
Here.
Mrs. Hamburg. Present. Mr. Hampton. Mr. Mickey.
Present.
Mrs. Leslie Mitchell. Here. Mrs. Tingle Sames. Here. Mr. Stone.
Here.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item number 3, the approval of minutes for March 9th, 2026 City Council meeting. At this time, I will entertain a motion. Motion made by Mr. Hampton.
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Brent. Are there further questions and or comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Item 4 is the check registry. Council, if you have received that, please raise your hand. Let the record reflect that all has received. Item number 5 is public comments. Let me remind you of some of the rules of the public comments. You will have 4 minutes to which you come and state your concern to this council. At that time, Madam Clerk will time you at 3-minute mark. She will let you know that 3 minutes has elapsed. And then you will have 1 minute to finish your comment. Then we'll ask that you take your seat, and so we may continue on to conduct business for here for the city of Georgetown. First, we have the Southern Knights Car Club. Oh,
They're on the regular.
oh, never mind. You come up there. I'm sorry. You know. Okay. We'll scratch that and come back to you later. Just hang in there, okay? All right, next we have Alonzo Allen, who wants to talk about water bill concerns.
Mayor, Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm going to read something I posted about a week or two ago in regards to the water bills. Many residents have recently raised concerns about unexpected spikes in their water bills. Several households have reported bills increasing significantly for a month or two and then returning to normal levels without a clear explanation. Georgetown Municipal Water and Sewer Service has looked into some of these cases, and in several instances, no leaks or issues were found on the customer side. When patterns like this appear across multiple accounts, it's important that we take a closer and more transparent look at the systems as a whole. Water service is one of the most essential services our community depends on, and residents deserve confidence that their bills are accurate and that the system is working as it should. For that reason, I believe it is time to bring in an independent consultant to review GMWSS's operations. An outside firm could evaluate key areas such as meter monitoring, billing processing, automation systems, and data management to determine whether there are any system issues contributing to these unexplained spikes. An independent review would help ensure accuracy, transparency, and accountability for our residents. If there are problems with systems within GMWSS, we need to find them and fix them. Residents deserve clear answers that restore confidence in their water bills. Our community deserves reliable service, fair billing, and complete transparency. Let's work together through this issue to find and eliminate the root cause. I will say that GMWSS, the staff, the employees, I don't think for 1 minute that they would inflate a bill to create any havoc or harm on any of our residents. At Toyota, we were trained to go back and look at the systems. I think that we should do that here as well. So thank you again for the opportunity. Hope we find the root cause.
Thank you. Kitty Dogood, if you want to talk about Royal Spring Park / H2O.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to have these questions or comments. I have 5 items, and I'm going to read them quickly, and I don't really anticipate an answer, but I am a resident of downtown, and some of these are also from my neighbors. So this is regarding to the cabins and the water mains downtown, or at the park. One is, why is it not a possibility to move the line a little to the west, which would avoid any impact on the cabin at all? 2, what is the cost comparison of moving that line that was in the newspaper versus moving the cabin twice? Because if you have to move it out and then return it. Was there a second opinion or a possible subcontractor that has looked at the project? If the cabin is in fact moved and returned to its original location, if there is a line underneath the cabin and there is an issue, then what will take place? And where was the money to do this project coming from? Is it city money, state money, or federal money?
Okay, thank you.
I'll give you those so you don't have to.
Thank you.
All right, Dan Holman.
Dan Holman, Georgetown. And my comments are related to the previous comments. Actually, they're GMWSS related. So regarding this billing spike issue that we've all been talking about for a long time now, clearly there's some kind of data reporting that's just not getting done, and that's kind of the next step in investigating what's going on. That's a next step, and there's other things. But like Chase said one time from this podium, he said, I think almost quote, people sometimes think we can take our billing data and filter it and report on it in different ways to generate patterns, but that's just simply not the case. It's a very manual process. So he actually said that, I believe, from here on videotape, and that's so that's kind of shocking, and surely that's not correct. But so surely they can take their billing data, download it into a spreadsheet, and with and have somebody look at it. And at this point, I have to agree with some previous commenters that it needs to be someone from outside GMWSS just for trust. I had suggested the last time, get a Georgetown College professor who's in statistics or mathematics to just look at this fairly simple data set and just look for patterns. And even if you could get some kind of geographical data on that, you could there's maybe some patterns in terms of geography. So that's, at this point, it seems like definitely something that should be done. Just turn over this data and let somebody look at it who knows math and statistics. Okay, then related also to this Royal Spring Park thing that's been going on for a long time. So yeah, I agree with Kitty's comments about all these questions that people would have. So basically, this line should have I would say it should have never been in the park from the first place. And they knew about it more than a year ago, and this should have been a more public conversation a year ago. But it's a conversation now. So the one thing I would ask is this: we've all heard the horizontal directional drilling. Is this underground trenchless technology. And this is a perfect place to look at trenchless technology. You have Water Street, which people talked about. You don't really want to go there because of disruption. But if you're doing trenchless digging, you're not disrupting things. So Fort Lauderdale, Florida had a similar issue. They had an old sewer line, and the city is basically a suburb of Miami. But so 7 miles through the city had a sewer line that needed to be replaced. And had they done open trenching, it really would have been a disaster. So they used horizontal directional drilling through 7 miles of urban Fort Lauderdale to complete their project. So that's just something we should consider here. And one reason maybe this hasn't come up, it's a fairly new technology in terms of gravity sewer. And Kim actually pointed out, there's this concern about you got to get your drainage angles correct, which for the last 20 years they've been able to start doing that. With computer-guided drilling, you drill like a little pilot hole. And for the last 20 years or so, they've been getting technology to drill that very precisely, so that like up to 1/8 of an inch or 1/16 of an inch drainage for your drilling, and then you bore it out and you use clay drilling fluid to stabilize the thing. So I hope some of you all have had a chance. So I do see that Chase is not here today, but Alan is over there. So, and he's an engineer, like he deals more specifically with engineering stuff than Chase does. So it would be great if someone could just ask the question, because it hasn't been asked yet, could horizontal directional drilling, trenchless technology, be used in some way over there at Royals to cause this cabin issue in this park to not be disrupted? Yeah, thank you.
Right. Mr. Steve Price.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm going to speak loud. I have a little trouble sometimes hearing who's up here speaking, so I don't want that. I want myself to be clearly heard. I'm going to speak. I hope I don't offend anybody by speaking too loud. I'm addressing the same resources that have been addressed: water, sewer materials, sewage materials. No, I won't get into that right now, but I'm addressing two resources I came here on my mind to address. Number one, water. And the town of Georgetown encourages people, in fact, maybe at one time, let's say the town of Georgetown discourages people from capturing roof water by forcing them to buy pipeline water. And I spoke with David Lusby an hour on the phone the other night about his heroic attention to the water company budget and his achievement of saving what he said were millions of dollars. I'm sure you remember recently there was a story about it in the newspaper. Lusby told me that some of you phoned him to congratulate his effort. And after that conversation with Lusby for about an hour, I went home and I thought to myself, public policy in Georgetown should pursue three objectives: smaller numbers, bigger harvests from land, all the vacant land in Georgetown cultivated by a majority population of small-scale farmers. Item two, that's item two. And then item three is barter. If the town of Georgetown would pursue those items put those items at the top of its agenda, at the forefront of its public policy, we would gradually create an agrarian population that produces right here in Georgetown and Scott County what it has to consume. The number one item of which is water, as not a very important. It is the most important non-essential material for people to have. And your code, well, I got to get to the point why I got this bucket. Your code enforcement agent, Sam Waite, told my landlord that I can't have buckets at my garden site. I catch all the water off the roof there behind Georgetown Self-Storage, and it's not pipeline water, it's not pressurized. The only way I can move it is in buckets. Well, Waite has advised my landlord that I can't have the buckets there. And I'm going to show you something. These plastic buckets, which are commonly used and which are the only buckets I know of, or maybe not the only, but the majority of the commercial buckets available commercially are made of plastic. This is what happens to plastic. It sits around in the sunlight and the air, the hot air, cold winter temperatures, and this plastic buckets disintegrate. They become what now is referred to in the media as microplastic pollution, which pollutes the groundwater, which gets in food, which is everywhere. I see it in my crops. I see little pieces of plastic now. And I would like to make wooden buckets. My next door neighbor is somebody at 1271 Lexington Road. They discard wooden pallets. They gave me a bunch of wooden pallets with which I intend to make wooden buckets that are biodegradable. And your agent, Sam Waite, says I can't have the pallets there so that I can make wooden buckets. Thank you.
Okay. And somebody else wanted to speak that was not Dana Barber. Okay.
All right. I'm here today because I believe something's deeply wrong with how residents in Scott County are being billed when it comes to our water. Back in January, I stood before you all questioning my bills and my mother's bills. I wasn't here looking for a handout. I was just here looking for answers and transparency and accountability. What I got instead was some confusion, frustration, and a little bit of help that I wasn't really sure what to do with. I emailed my information to Todd Stone, and I didn't get a whole lot of follow-through other than I'll see what I can do. So the following day, after that meeting, I attended the water board meeting. I sat next to you, the mayor. Then, not shortly after that, the office manager, Jessica Eads, approached me and gave me her card and told me, if you have any more issues, give me a call. And then something unexpected happened. People in this community, your constituents, started to reach out to me after they saw my Facebook post in one of the water groups. And they told me they were dealing with the same issues I was. The unusually high water bills and no clear explanation as to why. These are hardworking families trying to make ends meet, and they're being kind of left in the dark with a blanket explanation from the water board or the water company. You must have a leak. I waited until after my next bill from that water spike to contact her just to make sure I didn't have a leak, which I knew that I didn't. I contacted her. We had a short conversation. She sent someone out to change mine and my mom's meter after I had a clear water bill. She mailed me an adjustment form, and I sent it right back to her to have written record of that. A couple weeks went by. I got an email stating I'd received a credit of $171.57, which I found kind of odd. She told me they issued that credit based on my 2024 bill averages. Now, on the surface, that might seem like a resolution, but to me, it raised even more red flags in my brain. Why was my bill suddenly credited with me submitting nothing more than an email and a piece of paper without any proof? If there was a mistake on their part, why didn't they acknowledge it? Most importantly, how many people are overpaying and not getting the same adjustment as myself? To be honest with you, it didn't feel like accountability. It felt like hush money. It was a quiet, easy attempt to make possibly me a problem go away and be quiet about it. And that's why I'm here today. Scott County seems like they're being taken advantage of. In what way, I'm not really sure. There's a pattern of overbilling that's not being properly investigated or corrected. I believe the lack of transparency is eroding the trust between the water company and our community. There were discussions in January about an oversight committee appointed by you all. I have no idea if that's being done, if it's talked about, if it's been put forth. I have no clue. But I think that needs to be something that needs to be seriously looked at. Me personally, along with a lot of other people, have been pretty talked down to by the water department when you call with an issue. They're pretty rude, very short, without a lot of answers. These are the things I would like. A review of the billing practices with the water department, clear communication on how we're billed and how the discrepancies are handled, because we all don't have a leak, and that's obvious. Confirmation and activation of the oversight committee, and improve customer service standards so that nobody feels dismissed or ignored when they raise issues. Explain to the customers why, for the amount of we pay for water, does it smell like a dirty creek? I've been told we have too much rain, not enough rain. We buy it from Frankfurt. There's always a different excuse as to why this water smells so bad. And this comes from my boyfriend, who is from Cincinnati, that gets his water from the Ohio River, which is nasty. This is not about my bill. This is about trust. The last thing I want to say, and it's not on topic, please say no to these data centers that whoever gave a 6-month quorum to.
Thank you.
We don't want it.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. All right. Okay. I'll put that there. All right, next we have the event applications. Now we have the Southern Knights of Central Kentucky Cruise in.
Good afternoon, everybody. We're here on behalf of the Southern Knights again. We want to check on our cruises. Lori's here. I have contacted her. April looks good. If it's okay with you all, with no problem doing April downtown here. We do have 2 extra we would like to do, but we will do it down here. After I talk to Lori, we may do one more downtown. I'm not sure on the street. but we would like to get you all's approval tonight, if we can, to go ahead and do the April cruise and get with Lori later on the other two.
So it's my understanding that you want to come and just tonight, just do the first one for the 11th? And then
April
you're going to
11th.
come back again and do the next two
And
at a...
two more.
At a later date. Is that my understanding is correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion, Mayor, to approve that.
All right, motion is made to approve the April the 11th car show downtown. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second made by Ms. Brent. Are there further questions and or comments?
I have a comment, Mayor.
Yes.
After the last meeting, I did talk to Lori we talked for about an hour, and Lori said that there were no other events in April, and that they couldn't do the pavilion in April because of the construction that's there. And, Lori said, Lori, if you want to come speak, but I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what we were trying to do, and Lori even we talked about the other two dates that you all had asked for, and Lori had a really good idea that I said, why don't we just go for the April one and you all meet and talk and come back. And so that's the reason that I think we should go ahead with this one. There's not another opportunity to do it elsewhere, and one of the conditions that we talked about earlier was that we didn't want to have too many events closing Main Street, and there are no other events for April. So that's why I make the motion to move ahead with this.
Right. Any other comments?
I have a comment, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
I really appreciate the value that your events bring to the community. Over the last year, we had a few businesses on Main Street downtown say that not just yours, but a lot of different events brought a lot of extra challenges to them, especially on Saturdays, which is their busiest day typically for dining and shopping. Would you ever consider, aside from the pavilion, doing events on Sundays if you really wanted to do there, because that way it doesn't impact the businesses? Is that a no?
To be honest, Sunday, I try not to do anything because I am a Christian, and I definitely don't like to do cruises or car shows on Sunday, not unless I have, like our event in October, I have a Sunday service that morning.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Are the cruises all day, kind of like 9 to 5?
No, the cruise would be like on a Saturday. It would be pretty much after your business is closed. The only thing that's usually open that night is Fava down here at this restaurant here, the ice cream shop, and one of the ladies across the way here, her clothing, she's usually there till probably 6 or something. But it's usually 5 to 8. For 2 times, and then April will be from 4 to 7.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, all right, thank you for answering.
You're welcome.
Mayor, if I could, I want to hear from Lori on what's the businesses say.
Okay, come on up, Lori, please.
For the most part, as long as the businesses are notified ahead of time, and it is not multiple events taking place throughout the month on a Saturday, they are okay with an event taking place. One event, not 4 events, not every Saturday. That is the biggest issue, is making sure that we're not doing that all the time downtown on Main Street. And I have talked to Ms. Brenda about how we will make sure that downtown is fully aware that that's going to take place on April the 11th, and some additional signage to kind of help out so that people will know and be prepared for it.
All right, thank you. Is there any other questions or comments?
So Mayor, this will start closing the street at 3 or 4?
3. That's what we use, yeah, for this first event.
Okay, Ms. Mann, hold on.
That's why I'm asking.
Okay, so, go ahead. You had a question?
I thought we set a time limit that they couldn't start before a certain, and I thought it was 4 or 4:30 they couldn't start before.
Who set a time limit?
We had talked about that before.
I don't know if we have set it up, and I don't think we set a time. I think one of the things we try to use is using which was talked about, is using that 5 o'clock mark as a starting point right there. maybe they set up at 4 and they start at 5, but that wasn't, I don't recall any, where we had actually put in saying that we couldn't have anything at that time.
Now, if we have to change it to 5, what we did in April is because of the time change, and it starts getting dark a little bit earlier, so you don't want people trying to come out, that late after 7, because it's starting to get, just a little bit later. So that's the reason why we did the first one from 4 to 7.
You had a question?
I was just going to say, we've already changed time.
Right.
So,
I talked to Lori about if the event was 4 to 7, and Lori said that 3 o'clock would be the setup time. And that's normal for events that are 5 or 4 to 7 or 4 to 8.
And if the event is like at 6, then of course the setup time is 5. Is that correct?
In order to safely get all the barriers up and get the vehicles in, or for any kind of event, to get everything moved in and set up so they can start at the actual time.
All right. We still have a motion on here for that particular time. Is there any other question or comments? All right. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay.
I'm against it, and I'll tell you why. I think 3 o'clock, shutting the street down at 3 o'clock is too early. I think it needs to be at minimum 4 and push it back, but, I'm not against the event. I just am against the early start time.
Okay, noted. Then motion was made, properly second, and we voted on it, and it's, I think, 7-1. Is that right, Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that motion passed. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
you're going
Y'all
to
have a
come
good
back
night.
later on with the other 2.
All right, thank you.
Yep, okay. All right, next is item B, 6B, which is Georgetown College commencement.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are about 8 weeks away from that magical moment where we will be graduating just under 300 of our students. Our commencement ceremony is scheduled to take place on Saturday, May the 16th. Now, this year we are combining both of our bachelor's and our master's degrees candidates in one ceremony. As such, the anticipated number of guests that we're going to be having on campus has gone from about 2,000 from what we had last year to about 2,500. So we're going to have a lot of people on campus. What we are requesting, similar to our procedures from last year, is the closing of R.N. Wilson Drive, formerly Memorial Drive, and College Street from Military to Mulberry. We are also requesting a marked GPD unit at the top of R.N. Wilson to block off the access from Main Street, as well as an EC unit we've had an unfortunate history of some guests having some accidents just because of the location. But this is all going to take place on that. This is just a one-day event, unlike last year where we had the 2 ceremonies separated. So we are just petitioning for the closures of those streets for that day.
You have heard the request. Do I have a motion?
Motion, Mayor. Good. Second.
Okay, thank you. Motion made by Ms. Hamrick, second made by Mr. Stone. Are there further questions and/or comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Let the record reflect
Thank
it
you, sir.
passed. Thank you.
Have a good
All
evening.
right.
Mayor,
Yes.
just a quick comment. So since EMS has also been requested, that's not something that we coordinate?
No.
Whether or not that they have contacted them or not?
Yeah, I will check on that, make sure they take care of that.
I contact them.
You contact them, okay.
They just get copied on that calendar invite, so they accept them.
Oh, well, thank you. You're ahead of the game. Thank you, ma'am. All right, next, on Mayor's comments, revenue forecasting. You have hopefully received in your packet and this exercise to give you kind of a breakdown. This breakdown as to, just a little bit about how this works, this process, and, and I thank those that took part in this. I want to thank you for taking part of it and this I think, very notable, worthwhile exercise. A couple other mayor comments I want to share with you, just some for this council. A couple of ribbon cutting events coming up on Monday, March the 30th at 12 noon. We will have the ribbon cutting for the Marshall Park's new restrooms, which was completed and funded by this council. So that'll be next Monday, the 30th, at 12 noon in Marshall County, Marshall Park, not Marshall County. Don't go there, please. It would be a bad idea. It's 4 hours off track. Next, we have a ribbon cutting for the new satellite library and stamping ground. That will be Thursday, April the 2nd, 2026 at 12 noon in stamping ground. So they had one of those, as you remember, in Sadieville, so now they're going to put one in stamping ground, and so noon, 12 noon, high noon. All right, so that's a few things right there to put on your calendar. Next is council committee reports, and we have finance.
Thank you, Mayor. The Finance Committee held a special meeting on March 17th, 2026. The committee was present, as well as the mayor's staff. The minutes from the February 12th, 2026 meeting were unanimously approved. First item was budget item. We talked about the net gain contract renewal. Finance Director Clark provided a summary of the current cost of the city net gain contract with a proposed cost for a 12-month renewal. Some of the key points to look at was the renewal is that we will add staff augmentation, which will include 35 hours of position, a flat rate of $7,500 a month. And this is, all users will still utilize NetGain Help Desk, but this will help with the coordination of different activities outside of the help desk. So let's see, future budget amendments. Finance Director Clark stated that amendments to the budget will be brought to council on a more frequent basis so that the budget stays aligned with before contracts and purchases are approved. Budget goals and discussion. We discussed the salary and personnel considerations. One of the main ones brought up was an assistant finance director for Stacy, someone to back her up there. We also talked about the interlocal budget overview, and one of the most significant thing that came out of this is dispatch has requested the reinstatement of a shift supervisor position and an increase of starting pay from $22.11 to $26 an hour to address hiring and retention challenges. Under investments, the CD, central bank CD, an update was provided regarding the solicitation of proposals for additional investments related to the central bank CD. Solicitation was sent out to local banks capable of handling these investments with responses due by April 3rd for review by at the April Finance Committee meeting. A proposal from Stockyards Bank was discussed, which involves approximately $600,000 from recently matured securities. They suggested a flexible approach to reinvesting these funds and anticipating a yield between 3.75 and 4.25 with a mix of treasuries, municipal bonds, FDIC insured brokerages, and federal agency obligations. And with that, the meeting was adjourned at 5:09.
Thank you, and I believe that was the only one we had this week. I'm going to kind of switch the agenda up a little bit to move some things along that we need to move some things along here, so I'm going to switch it up a little bit. So we're going to go to item number 13C, and 13C, if you look on your agenda, is municipal order for NetGain Technologies LLC agreements, and Stacy is here. I think she had some other people with us today that's going to talk a little bit about that. Go ahead, Stacy.
Good evening.
We do have Zach from NetGain here with us if there are any technical questions. I will just hit the highlights of the contract renewal. If you'll recall, in the last budget amendment, we did set aside some funds for a consultant to help the city in the future going forward navigate what our IT needs look like in the future, whether that's in-house, continuing our MSP model. We have a survey that we sent out. You all may have taken that survey to all of our employees about what their needs are. But in the interim, to allow us time to find a consultant, do that evaluation, we are recommending renewing the NetGain contract for 1 year, just a 1-year term. And it does have some additional services in it that will help address some of those things in the interim. One of the biggest things that came out from some of our staff, especially staff at some of our more technically complicated departments such as PD and 911, was having someone on site that can handle some of those higher level tickets for them. Most of our higher level issues come out of those departments with the complicated software that they have and all of the different programs speaking to each other. So in the last budget amendment, you all approved an additional $7,500 per month for staff augmentation. That is a level 2 resource or engineer that will be on site during our typical 35-hour work week. And that will be handling most of those technical issues that arise when our administration is here for those departments to really assist them. And then they will, I won't get into too many technical aspects of that. Zach's here to answer those questions, but it will really help those departments who have the greatest needs, and then also be able to address maybe some other level 2 tickets quicker. However, the first main line of contact for most employees is still going to be to call that a help desk initially. That is still part of our managed services provider with NetGain. In addition to the on-site staff augmentation, you all may recall that we adopted some essential security services for 911 and PD when they came on to the NetGain contract. And those essential security services have also been recommended citywide. That was a first step because those are kind of our most sensitive data, critical departments, but those recommendations are being made for the city as a whole. That's about an additional $5,000 per month for that Security Operations Center as a Service. It's called SOCAS, Essential Security. And all of that was summarized in the memo, and you can see that the new monthly cost would be $45,328. It's currently $37,989. The bulk of that is due to the staff augmentation and then, like I said, the essential security. As part of this, I know Parks and Planning have piggybacked on our contract in the past, and Parks is going to, they have much less complicated technical issues, so for the cost value, they're going to go out and find their own solution. So part of what we used to get was a reimbursement from them for their users, so we won't be doing that anymore. And then planning will be staying under our NetGain umbrella, but being billed separately for their services. So that is the high-level overview. If there are any technical questions, I will defer to Zach or Devin. So if you have any questions.
Couple questions.
Yes.
Okay, yes. Zach, you want to come up, please?
Oh.
Or Sarah,
okay.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Okay.
So we'll start with it. First of all, this is Zach from
Okay.
NetGain Technologies. He is our new account rep, so we started working with him on this contract. So everybody meet Zach. Nice to
meet you all. Thank you all for having me.
And then happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, actually, it's still for Stacy.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yes.
Okay, there you go.
I don't have a technical question.
No, that's fine.
Is it common to just do a one-year contract? Is there a reason why it's just 1 year? And are we looking at other cities? Technology is in such a fast-paced,
Yes.
sweepingly changing.
I'll answer as best I can, and Sarah may need to help me out on this one. I will say it's not typical for NetGain to do the 12-month. They've kind of done that at our request.
Right.
Typically, they prefer a 2 or more year
That's
renewal.
what I was thinking.
But we do want to take some time to do that evaluation and see, because like you said, we have looked at, I know Sarah and Devin have looked at what, other counties and cities do, whether it be on-site staff, whether it be this type of setup that we're proposing tonight. So it's to allow us time to do that evaluation without locking us in. If we decide this isn't the
Yeah.
setup that we want, it doesn't lock us in for longer than 12 months.
Okay,
So that was the original
Yeah,
justification behind the 12
That makes me feel
months.
more comfortable because
Yeah.
I would assume that was the truth that you're
Yes,
looking
I
at
mean,
other
due to our
places.
long-term relationship, they were willing to do the 12 months, even though that's not their typical
Yeah.
contract renewal
Okay,
length.
thank you.
So,
All right.
So,
Can I ask that?
Yeah.
Yes.
For one moment. Yeah, to that point, do want to thank NetGain for working with us in negotiating to that agreement, because ultimately, it always better interests a vendor to have longer-term contracts, but knowing that the sophistication of our infrastructure is ever advancing, and I'll do the same as Stacy and defer to Sarah on the actual complexity of it, but we're growing in a way that we don't know this, that's why we want a third party to help us evaluate it, but we might be
Right.
outgrowing the current structure. So we're taking a good step in terms of meeting end user needs by getting that staff augmentation component folded in. That's a direct response to the surveys that our end users took, and that was the kind of resounding feedback, was wanting that on-site resource. The way that rolls out and actually is implemented is going to be something that we're going to have to be very intentional about, but that willingness to negotiate and work through that period so that we have the ability to look at all of our infrastructure citywide and evaluate what it looks like, whether it is moving closer to an in-house IT. A lot of governments our size have in-house IT,
Right.
a department with a managed service provider on retainer. I'm certain NetGain works with plenty of companies. NetGain and other managed service providers work with companies that have internal IT, but need them on retainer for those larger projects and larger implementation of cybersecurity specifically, I would say. So we're kind of hoping to spend this time really assessing what we need and making sure we're best positioned to specifically secure our assets in the future and provide that end user experience as well. So kind of an appreciation piece to NetGain for being willing to be flexible there. And this is the product that you all are considering today.
Thank you.
Question?
yes. So I guess it was my understanding that we were already doing this evaluation of in-house versus out. And so I guess what's the actual status of that right now, first of all? And then, given what that status is, it's a one-year extension. This is government. Are we going to be able to actually complete that study and be able to get a result and then activate whatever the result of that is within a one-year period? And if so, do we have the schedule built for that?
I can speak to at least the procurement part. We have a draft RFP for the consultant or RFQ that we're trying to finalize and get out. In-house, I will say we've done a lot of, like I said, Devin and Sarah especially have done a lot of research with what other cities and counties have done. But it was a lot of in-house research, and which is what resulted in saying that we felt we needed the consultant to come in and help us evaluate. But beyond that, I'll defer to Devin.
I don't have much to add beyond that. It's just a matter of kind of pulling the trigger on advertising that RFQ. I can let Sarah speak to the research she's done. She's done some pretty extensive networking and research with other jurisdictions, specifically jurisdictions that have that operate like a 911 center and public safety systems, and lots of governments operate differently, but we have a lot of robust, unique needs. So I think that independent third party is really important, though, because we all, if you look at the same thing every day, you're trained to see the same thing. So in terms of a schedule, I would expect that consultant would develop that right off the bat. So like we said, that budget amendment was adopted, and it's just a matter of advertising that and then developing that schedule to meet that time frame.
Yep. Sarah?
Thank you for your question. I do agree with what Devin had mentioned. The RFQ is drafted. It's actually on my computer right now. Was working on the final touches. We were working on that last year, along with Karen. She was helping us with that. So we're still looking at it, working on it, moving forward. My personal timeline is hopefully to have that out and published before we hit June. Pushing for April, but I think that City Hall is going to probably play a little bit of a time constraint for me, just as far as getting everyone back in and making sure all of our issues are settled. So like that's kind of my time frame, and I also agree with what Devin's statement was in the sense of the consultant, how we see them being utilized is bringing them on, allowing them to see our infrastructure, compare it to other environments that they've seen, and kind of saying like what is the best support that they've seen play out. Anytime you're breaching the topic of IT and staffing, you run into a scenario of, staff is, and I know that you understand this coming from your business background, staff is also sometimes the most expensive part of raising a model. So it's kind of being able to allow that consultant the time to take that in, us bring it back to ourselves and review it, and creating a strategy probably together with a consultant, and then also what kind of aligns for us within the city of Georgetown for to implement, because they don't necessarily understand our resources and our staff and all the multiple tasks they might take on. So hopefully it'll be a team effort to come up with that schedule after we get it rolled out. But to answer the question that I think that was a little bit before that, you asked about, and I believe you mentioned it as well, the staffing models across the state, it really does vary. When looking at the 3 that sit above or below us as far as comparable cities, you do see a variety. You see a few that are actually fully in-house staffed, and then you see several that are internal to kind of triage, but they're all supported by an MSP on the back end. And then they also typically use an MSP for all of their large project rollout. It allows their on-site staff to keep moving the workforce forward and staying in touch with all of their internal people, while that project team kind of works in the background and gets things up and running with a little bit of less interruption. So.
Yeah, so I'll just point out, this contract expires, if executed, March 31, 2027. And I thought I heard in that conversation, we would start something in June.
The consultant.
Right.
Yeah, no, to have that published and moving forward by June.
We can work on the publishing and the scoring before that, obviously. Karen and I can work on that while she's dealing with City Hall and getting us all back in there once that's ready to go. So Karen and I can handle the advertisement and getting the scoring committee, and hopefully, it may be by the end of May before we'll want to make sure we advertise that for at least 2 to 3 weeks once it's out, and have time to score and get it back to you all.
So my only point behind that is, if making a decision, and then if there is a transition, what that transition schedule would be, or if it's a contract, being able to secure then a long-term contract for that. So will we be doing that in parallel, or?
As far as a future contract renewal with NetGain, I'd say once we get a consultant hired, we will, like you said, we'll develop that timeline. We can, of course, consider retainers with NetGain to get us through any transition period if needed, even if we're not renewing a full-blown MSP. Obviously, since they're familiar with our systems, if needed, we can do a retainer contract with them to get us through any transition period.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, so at this time, I need a motion.
Motion, Mayor.
Motion made by Mr. Hampton. Do I have a second? Second made by Mr. Crisp. Are there further questions and/or comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Let the record reflect that the motion passed. Thank you. We're going to then switch again on another item. We're now going to go with item 10, which is the traffic calming program, implementation update, Banks Engineering. And Eddie's going to talk a little bit about that. I think he's got someone here with him and talk with.
Yeah.
Okay, Eddie, thank you.
Thank you. Can you all hear me? Okay. Thank you all for letting me present this. I'm here with John Steinmetz with Banks. He prepared most of this. I'm going to present it, and then if I need him to answer any technical questions, I'll call him up. So, first slide's up. So, why do we do this? Well, this was done to respond to public complaints about speeding. Particularly back in neighborhoods, since we're the jurisdiction that handles the neighborhoods, and then so it's not for the main main state roads, 25 and 460, and the bypass. It's for the neighborhood streets. We wanted to, we've completed the study. A lot of this will be repeat and things that you've already seen, just as a refresher, and then I'll get into kind of the recommendations that we're going to make next time, hopefully next meeting for you all to vote on, of implementing some of the things that we uncovered. So the purpose of the study was to identify a list of things that we could go to, a go-to box, a toolbox of traffic calming measures that we could implement, particularly in older sections of town that don't have any traffic calming at all. Could we go to the next slide, please? So the traffic calming program, which you all have passed and approved, is in place, and which gave us the ability to implement things, and that's what we're doing here, is we're going to implement some near-term recommendations in the following areas: in Indian Hills, and we'll get to more of that later, on Showalter Drive, and on Payne Avenue. And those were selected because they seemed to be the ones that we were receiving the most calls about and the most complaints about, people speeding through there in those areas. And so we selected that for this first phase to do this, what I'll call the pilot study of those areas. And it can be, again, this can be used all throughout the city and any other areas. The next slide, please. So we assess the traffic concerns in the neighborhoods, the neighborhoods you see there that we just talked about, and we have some recommendations for you to think about tonight, and then we'll bring them to you formally to vote on at the next meeting. So as I mentioned before, this is a toolbox of potential traffic controls and improvements. It's things like speed signs, it's things like speed bumps and speed humps. It's things like you can narrow a section of road to create a pinch point to slow people down that way. Those are the toolbox items. Those are just some examples of the toolbox items that I'm talking about. And then it details a process for implementing them. If a city councilman or the mayor came forward and said, I'd like you to look at doing a traffic calming on so-and-so street, this gives you a process to go through that's adopted to make that happen and to bring that into place. And we're going to be bringing, as I mentioned before, the implementation rollout of those areas. So could we turn to the next slide, please? So you'll see the yellow triangles, a little house. Those are the areas that were picked. One is the Showalter Drive, one's Indian Hills, Gano, and then Pleasant Valley was also looked at in the upper part of the page. Can you turn the page, please? So what are these processes that I'm talking about, how you would go about doing something? Well, we have 3 tiers. The first tier is a low-cost, easy to implement, and we can do that at the traffic committee level. As you all know, we have a traffic committee that meets once a month, and we got a couple of council people, as Michael and Todd sit on there, and we discuss these kinds of issues. It would be things like putting up a sign. One of the big things is asking police to come in and, hey, we need you to camp out here on this street and write some tickets. And also some putting up striping, like side striping on the edges of the road. Things like that are low cost and easily implemented. We can do that at the traffic committee level. The tier 2 and the tier 3 have to come to you all, have to come to the city council for implementation, and that's things like horizontal and vertical deflections, which is speed tables, speed bumps, and they have to be approved by the city council. Tier 3 also has to be approved by the city council, and it's like major things like closing down a street or reworking, maybe putting in a traffic circle or something, a big project like that. That, of course, would have to be approved at the tier 3 level by the council. The next slide, please. Now getting on to the actual recommendations, what we would like to do now and put into place now is one is the Indian Hills. The first thing we did is we talked to GPD, we talked to the police department, and they had some really good ideas because they monitor traffic regularly. We identified some areas from additional speed signs. We're going to add some center line and edge lines on Highland and Seminole, and then approving some sight distance at Pocahontas and Comanche, and then implement a Showalter striping plan as well. That's the edge striping that I mentioned before. These are all Tier 1 items, and we would like to do that right away. Next slide, please. So the speed humps and speed tables, we all know what those are. We see them in a lot of, particularly in Lexington, they're in a lot of different places. That requires council approval to put these in. And as I mentioned before, I'll be asking for that at the next meeting. We identified some places for that. And next slide, please. Yeah, there's two different types you can see there. You know what they look like. The one on the left and the right differ a little bit, but they're different styles of traffic calming of speed things that we're looking at the one on the left-hand side. The next slide, please. Okay, this is what we want to do. These are the potential locations. This is what we'd like to do on Seminole Trail. And what you're looking at here is those big red circles or purple circles. You'll see a tandem on the right-hand page, and then it's kind of in the middle of the page. Those are the speed hump locations that we would like to put in, and those are where we want to put them. We would start with those four locations, and then should we need more, and it works out well, we've identified other areas which are you see the priority 1, priority 2, and priority 3 in that little box on the left-hand corner and about halfway through the page. There's also yellow spots identified and green as well, and those would come later. But we're going to ask for these 4 here, the red dots coming up. Next slide, please. This is the same thing on Hiawatha Trail. Speed bumps again. And they're going to be located, speed tables, thank you, Devin. That's actually good comment, thank you. We've identified those 2 locations there, and then we've also identified future locations should we determine after a period of time we need more. We've identified some other locations that we could do, and that's with the yellow and the green that you see on there. So that's Hiawatha Trail. The next slide, please. We also, a similar thing at Aztec, looked at 2 locations for speed humps on that road as well. And you see those in those dots. And then you also see future places with priority 2 and 3 on that road as well. Next slide. And the last one for the speed tables is Pocahontas. And you see those kind of in the middle of that block. And again, they're in tandem as well. You like to put 2 together to get the benefit. So that takes care of Indian Hills. And next slide, please. So we've got we're already doing the enforcement, public education, striping signage. I mentioned that. We're doing that as we speak, especially on the enforcement level. We've done quite a bit over in that area, or the police has, I should say. And then we've been working on public education through these exercises through City Council, and we're going to put in the striping and the signage as well. That's coming next. And then the speed tables, I mentioned the phased approach of what we would like to do now, and then monitor it and look to see if we need to add more in the future. That's the phased approach. And down there, I want you all to pay all close attention to the typical speed table diagram. That's got a lot of information about what these things look like. You'll see it's basically a 12-foot ramp up, 6 inches, and then about 6 foot in the middle, and then it ramps back down 12 feet. And so it's a very gentle thing, where if you're going 25 miles per hour, you're going to be fine, but if you're going 35, it's going to be quite a bit different ride over that. So that's kind of that's a really good diagram with a lot of information, what it's going to really look like. Next slide, please. Again, on West Showalter, that being a major thoroughfare, we're going to go with some Tier 1 things right there. That's the edge lines, the white edge lines, to reduce the lane width, and that creates a behavior on drivers to stay within that lane and to slow down a little bit. We're going to do that there, and we will continue to evaluate that for potential Tier 2s in the future. Next slide, please. This is kind of a diagram of what that striping is going to look like. You'll see the yellow center line and the edge lines, and that's what we want to implement over on Showalter. And we're going to be doing that. Next slide, please. On Payne and Gannot, that's going to be a similar situation where that's a really wide road where people tend to speed through there. We're going to do the edge lines and the center lines over there as well to try and get people to slow down a little bit. And we're also going to do a lot of continuing monitoring to try to identify something a little bit. It's probably going to take us something a little bit more, like either a roundabout or a chicane or something that's a much more extensive project, much more costly project that may be required over there. And so we're going to continue to look at that and for a future project, not right now. Right now it's going to be the striping in the pavement markings. Next slide, please. So as far as the detailed finding and recommendations, I've pretty much covered everything that we would like to do now. And again, I'll be bringing something to you at the next meeting, and I'll open the floor for questions.
Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
So no traffic calming tables for Gannot right now?
Not right now, no.
Okay.
Yeah, we may do that in the future.
Okay.
But we're kind of thinking we may need to do something. That's a really, really wide, if next time you're through there, you'll notice. And we may look at cutting pavement on the edges is one thing. But we don't want to jump into that just yet. We want to try to ease into it.
As long as we're striping and it's a wider expanse, might it be helpful to put bike lanes and pedestrian lanes? Because I don't think there's a lot of sidewalk.
Yeah, we can certainly look at it.
There's both sides sidewalk?
Yeah.
Okay. Then maybe it's not needed, although you don't want bikes necessarily on the sidewalks.
For some reason, they built that road really wide. I
Yeah.
don't know why.
It's just something to think about.
Okay. No, I think it's great, yeah.
Yeah, the other thing is, I guess we're gonna put up 25-mile-an-hour signage.
Yes, yes.
At the same time as doing
Yes.
the tables.
Yeah, oh, yeah, there'll be signage and there'll
Okay.
be striping and it'll look,
Yeah.
it'll look
Okay.
very well done and like it's recommended by the standards.
Great.
Mayor?
Yes.
Eddie?
Yeah.
Of your recommendations, that's going to include all of the priority one at one time?
Yes, we want to do all 10 of them.
All
Yeah,
10?
we'd like to go ahead and do them all
Okay.
and just roll it out there and
Okay.
see how it goes.
Thank you. Robert, a question, please?
Yes. Come on up, Robert.
The speed tables, just curious, and that will not present a problem for snow plows in the winter with the?
Well, I wouldn't say it wouldn't present a problem.
I'm sorry.
I wouldn't say it wouldn't present a problem, no.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to be aware of them.
Okay.
A whole lot better than a speed bump, you know,
Okay.
where you get that gradual, the guys are,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, the sewer drains and the manholes, anytime you have those, we have issues where we hit them, but
Yeah.
there's nothing we can do. Can't hardly see them, but we will be aware of these and we can,
Eddie,
watch for them.
how are these installed? Or you say they're 12 feet. Do they cut the asphalt out and then do those?
Just
or
put 'em on
how-
top.
I think they just put them on top. I'm pretty sure they just put them on top, but I need
See,
to,
that's my concern. If
Yeah.
they put them on top, the edges of them, you're gonna catch it.
But it's only 6 inches and it's going from
Yeah.
0 to 6, so.
they may have, I need to
We'll
find
have
out for
to-
you, Greg, on that. I'll have to ask that question. They
We don't
may-
have any, so I don't have any.
Yeah. No, I think it's a very good idea. I just want to put that concern out there.
Where at? Oh, yeah, well, yeah, that's
Yeah.
the only one,
Yeah.
yeah.
If his guys do them right.
Jason usually does Jackson Street, so.
Okay.
he's
We
more
really want this
experienced.
program to be successful
Right.
and to be.
Yeah.
And we think this is the least,
Yes, I agree.
yeah,
Thank you.
aggressive approach.
Yeah.
It's the,
Thank you, Eddie. Thank you, Robert.
Yes.
so, thank you.
So in each one of these cases where we're doing tables and things like that, so looking at our paving schedule or an ideal paving schedule.
Right.
Are we looking at those dates and when we would install these to make sure that
Yeah, we would,
we're coordination and not
we will definitely use the same construction firm that we use for street paving. And most likely, we would have to request a formal quote from them to put these in, since it's not a typical mill and pave kind of project that we already have established prices for. And we would do that. We expect them to be around $5,000 each. Yeah. That's kind of the number that Lexington has been getting from their people that we checked with. So, yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess the real question is, timing.
Yeah.
Obviously, and being able to make the best use of all those
Right.
opportunities.
Yeah, the big thing is going to be coordinating with our paving company to get them on the same schedule if we have a street in that. We haven't put out a street list yet, but get one over there to take advantage of mobilization costs and those sorts of things.
Well, and that was going to be my question, whether or not we could get that in terms of
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we
that, so that we
can.
can lay it out. That way, when we communicate to the residents, especially if we're changing the flow and adding parking and those kinds of things, how we're going to communicate all those things.
Right.
Mrs. Stone?
And that's one of the things that we will do, work with the traffic committee, is getting the information out. But
Yeah.
back to the development of the speed tables is if it's done right and it's paved right, it'll be a seamless transition up and over, and you won't have cut in the blacktop. It'll all be paved as it goes. My double check.
You don't want to cut.
Right.
Remember, if you're going to speak, please come to the mic, please.
But
Thank you.
it should be a seamless transition with that. And if you've driven over them in Lexington, you will slow down. The one on Jackson Street will slow you down, so.
I want to just ask a quick question, Eddie. So how long does it take to do, like, one of the streets, like if you picked Aztec and S2? What's the timeframe once you get approval?
That's a good question. I wouldn't think it would take more than a couple of days to get them put in, yeah. But I need to double check on that before I speak out of turn with the construction company and see what their experience is with it. And I can get you that information.
Well, and I would like to say thank you for bringing this back to us and coming up with a plan, because that's, the phone calls I get are almost all about this issue.
Yeah.
And, I see it, I live up in an Indian Hills area, and all the streets that were built years ago without calming
Right.
measures. It goes for almost a mile
Yeah.
without a stop
Yeah.
sign anywhere. And people, it's hard to drive 25.
It is.
I do it every day, and I try to stay at 25 because I'm one of the people that wants to see it, but it's tough to do when you have that wide open space. Just like Gano, it's an old road and it was wide, and so people think they can fly up and down.
And
so
they do, yeah. They do
I
that.
appreciate you all bringing this forward.
Oh,
so.
thank you for letting me do it. It was very interesting. And that, you made a good point, like all the new subdivisions that are built today are under the current subdivision regulations that planning and zoning keeps and monitors. They build these kind of traffic calming features into all new streets that come online. We're looking at older, of course, older areas that did not have it built in. They just weren't thinking that way at that time, you know.
One of the I'm jumping a gun here, but what'd you call it? Chicanes?
Yeah, it's, John, can you explain, come up here and.
There is, in the neighborhood that's been built behind me, it's a newer neighborhood. The streets are more narrow like you're talking about, but they have used those as, you all should go out there and look at it. Old Oxford Landing Drive in particular, those things are terrible. And if somebody's on this side and somebody's on this side, somebody has to go down the other street. There's not enough room for them to even, and it works with the parking and stuff like that on those narrow streets. Eventually, Gano is a wide street, so maybe it's okay, but those are terrible, and I'd love for the council to go back in that subdivision and take a look at it and
Which
it's off of Old Oxford. You
Yeah.
go down Limestone and go back into there.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, those are
It is,
terrible.
it's kind of, does this, kind of jogs.
It goes
Yeah.
up, and there's one that'll stick out over here, and the road will come out over here, and the one will stick out over on that side, so it takes up parking in front of probably 3 people's homes to start with, which that's an issue. And then if you're coming this way and the other person's coming this way, then one of you is forced to go that way or back up
Right.
to let the other car come through. They're horrible.
Yeah.
Just my opinion.
I don't disagree with that. She was asking about some of the different styles of chicanes, if you could share some of that.
I think site-specific designs, I'm not familiar with the spot you're talking about, but
It's really
I guess the
tight.
point about them is to make people feel uncomfortable about going too fast because of the restrictions. And that could be on-street parking, like, that's what we're showing on the Showalter striping plan, was really a parking lane, and if people use those, plus the striping of 11 half-foot lanes instead of, I think they're 16 now, wider than an interstate lane. So just psychologically, having a more narrow space is going to get people to slow down, and that's extremely inexpensive thing to do. That's one reason why we had the different priorities on the speed tables, because they may cost, depends on whether it's integrated with your paving program or not. It could be $5,000 each site for the paving and the striping and signage. So you want to make sure they're effective, and so the ones that we're showing as priority 1, we feel pretty good that those will be effective and helpful. Then there'll be a determination of how effective are they by the residents complaining and the police department. You may not need any more, or it may be going over pretty well, but maybe you could use more to increase their effectiveness. But since they're relatively costly, we wanted to take a slower approach for the initial rollout of these.
All right.
Thank you
Any
all.
other questions or so on? I think the idea is to change people's behavior.
That's
And
right.
the only way to change people's behavior is to actually get them to slow down, so.
Just so I understand, next council meeting, you're going to be coming with the cost and et cetera, and then we'll take a vote on whether to move forward?
Yeah, I probably won't have an exact cost. I'll have a budget number, but I want y'all to approve it. I'm going to ask y'all to approve it. I want to give y'all some time to digest it and think about it, talk to your neighborhoods and your folks, and come back. And if you have any questions in the meantime that I can answer, just give them to Mayor Jenkins, and he'll send them to me. And
Okay.
And we'll get them answered.
So, Mayor, so Eddie, will the proposal also include a schedule?
Yeah, I can do that. I can do that.
Please.
Should be able to do that, yeah.
Okay. All right, that was an update. Thank you all so
Thank you all.
much. Now back on schedule here. Item number 9, planning and zoning ordinance. As you know, this councilman asked that, one of the things we looked at, have a committee to put together some of the trying to streamline some of the issues of the ordinance and so on. We also had, next step was to get a work session together with the planning and zoning, and that's coming up for you all if you have on your calendars for March the 30th. I think 6 to 8 is on that time. We plan to do that. We sent out some information as to prepare this agenda. We want to know so to be more time effective to where we're not just spinning our wheels. Come up with some way which you all can give us some direction as to what do you want this to look like? What are some particular topics, information that you want to see on this agenda? Like I said, you can send those to me, or we can do some discussion now on those, if you want to discuss some of those, and send them to me, and we'll make sure we get it out. Because we want to have an agenda that's going to make sure that we addresses exactly what you want this to look like. If that makes sense to you all. Any discussion on this?
Mayor?
Yes.
So I appreciate getting that draft out for discussion. I think when I recall our last conversation with a joint meeting, I think one of the things that may be beneficial is if we maybe got somebody from the college or a third-party facilitator so that we can all actively participate on both groups and focus on that so that, you're not having to referee and that type of thing.
I've done that a few times.
But be able to keep us on task and be able to drive a true result by the end of the meeting so that we're able to go in with that agenda with an expected outcome of something, whatever that may be, and then be able to take the next step. I just think that may be useful. The other thing is, the committee, provided the response back, collected all of our individual thoughts, and there was a summary kind of what was there. But I guess I'm curious as a council what our position is and what things are important for us to push and in those conversations. Because we haven't had that conversation yet, and it's only a week away.
Yes. Yeah, as part of that, Kim, I was going to suggest, before next Monday, take a look at, your findings, and each council member come back with 2 or 3 priorities that we can look at.
Mm-hmm.
That way, it would make the meeting more productive.
Yeah.
And the other thing I want, this is a subcommittee here. Were we talking about another committee once we got through those findings, or did I mishear that?
That was the plan. That was the plan.
Yeah.
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think after this going again, I think the next thing was to put a committee together,
Right.
which have public coming in and actually weighing in on that. I think
Right.
that was the next step.
Right. So whether it be before Monday or, wait till we have the workshop, I think that's one of the pressing priorities that we need to do, is get that committee together with the public input.
Okay.
But I guess the question is, what charge will that committee have?
Right, right.
Is
Understood.
the question.
Yeah, understood.
And you may want to wait till after we figure out what we think is pressing
That's what I'm
first.
saying, after
And then
we have
once
the
we get the
workshop.
pressing things done, here's, okay, this council sees that these are the important issues that we need to address
Mm-hmm.
for ordinance, for the planning and zoning and changing whatever we need to change. And then, knowing that information, now we can set a committee together and say, this is our charge to figure out as to, these are the things that we want to address. We want your input on this.
I think the idea of the next committee was something similar to what has been occurring with the county and planning and zoning, where they had a combined committee that decided on and tackled different issues. And instead of it just being the planning and zoning on one, you doing their thing and the city doing our thing, they had moved ahead and combined the two and picked a few topics and worked them all the way through. I think that's what we wanted to do next.
All right. Any other, like I said, if you think of some more or some more information that you want to share or how you want this to proceed, just either email those to me and I will give it to staff and we can go from there unless you all got some more you want to bring out.
So, Greg, do you want to set a time frame for folks to submit by X?
I mean, this is Monday, so, I mean, it had to be relatively
Yeah.
quick. I mean,
Well, and how much time they're going to need, my staff going to need to get this.
Right.
And get this to you all, 'cause I'm sure you all probably want to know what the questions are. I don't know.
Yeah, I think just in terms of Monday, collectively as a body saying what you all want to accomplish, and I know that sounds fluffy, but going into that meeting, you all are a body of the council as opposed to independent positions. I hear one agenda item from Greg being discussion of that larger committee that folds in council members, planning commission members, public, just kind of a lot of different components and a lot of different perspectives. But, we set this meeting with the planning commission. What is the end result of that meeting that we're seeking? Is it to be moving towards that discussion of those text amendments? Is it to be moving towards the committee? Just having that in mind and having a uniform agreement of what to accomplish there so that we don't get there and then we have 8 different interpretations of what the purpose of the meeting is, and also to communicate to the planning commission so they're ready to have a productive conversation. So if you all, we can take those priorities and piece through them and do our best to put together that agenda. I hate to put a quick turnaround, but to finalize the agenda and get it to the commission, it would be ideal to have your all's comments by close of business Wednesday. And I think we can then sift through those and do our best to get a draft agenda out to you all and hopefully get kind of the nod that it's good to go. So, thanks.
So, Mayor, just one more point, and it just occurred to me as Devin was discussing. So we're talking about the Planning Commission, which is, I think, the appropriate area. But we also have the local Board of Adjustments, and I think maybe input from them to the commission, to us, may be beneficial because of the various things that are brought before them that are challenges and requests for changes or exemptions to existing policy. So if there's any trends and things like that from those meetings, requests, what they've approved, not approved, I think may be very beneficial.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? If not, we are now ready to move to item number 11, Georgetown Municipal Water Sewer Service. And
Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
May I suggest, with the exception of A, B, and I, that we group these together, hear them at once, and then vote on them collectively?
A, B, and I?
Yeah, the Hazen and Sawyer, Cleary Construction, which is the Royal Springs. I think the others, we could probably go through those and hear them and then vote on those at once instead of doing 9 up or down votes.
Okay, so you say
I'll
A.
make that motion if we need to.
All right, so motion, let me make sure I get this right. So motion to actually exhibit, it's the A, What was the other one?
A, well, and then the customer usage update, B,
B,
and I, and then, of course, you got J at the bottom, the informational update.
and J.
Yeah.
So in other words, we will do these separately.
C through H.
C through H will also do,
collectively.
all those will be
Yeah.
done and been voted upon at one time.
Yes.
With one motion.
Right.
All right, so motion's been made to make that change. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second is made by Mr. Wonderful, let us see, that's Mr. Minky, thank you. And then, any other questions and/or comments? All those in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. All right, so I guess what we'll do here is we'll just go ahead and do, like we got it here, we'll do A, B, I, and J individually. We'll go and do those, and then we'll group the other ones, okay? In that order, all right? Yes, ma'am, now go.
Great, hi. Carissa Garland, Communications Director. As you can see, Chase is not here tonight, but I have been very well briefed, so I think I'll be able to answer all of your questions. The first thing we have on the agenda tonight is relating to PFAS. We've talked a little bit about PFAS off and on, but just a reminder, that's kind of what it's commonly referred to as forever chemicals in the water. There is, the EPA finalized regulations in 2024 that set some very low limits of PFAS compounds in drinking water, and all utilities will be required to meet those at some point. So just to clarify, treating PFAS is not something that is optional. It is something that we are required to do. So the question is not really if we're going to address the PFAS, but it's more so how do we do it in the most effective and cost-efficient way. So this assessment that we put out an RFQ for, it will help us understand our current PFAS levels, evaluate the treatment options, identify the infrastructure changes that may be needed, and then build a roadmap to our compliance date ahead of the federal mandate. So we selected Hazen and Sawyer through our RFQ process. They've done a lot of work with us previously, and they bring a national team of experts in PFAS to come and help give advice about treatment and compliance. So Trey DeRoche, I'll welcome him up, as the project manager with us, and he is leading the project. So with that, I will hand it over to Trey, and he will be able to walk you through kind of the technical side of the presentation.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight on the PFAS treatment evaluation. So we can go to the next slide. So the presentation tonight is in 5 parts. We'll start with a quick introduction. I introduce myself. We'll talk about what are PFAS forever chemicals. And then we'll talk about what the EPA is requiring utilities like Georgetown Municipal to do. We'll jump specifically into Georgetown Municipal's compliance strategy and end up with a little bit of content on how the project is anticipated to be funded. So next slide, please. So I'm Trey DeRoche. I'll be speaking to you tonight. I'm from Hazen and Sawyer's Louisville office, and I'll be the project manager for the project. My major roles as project manager will be to ensure that the project is completed on time, within budget, that we're following our quality assurance and quality control protocol, and I'll also serve as first point of contact for Georgetown Municipal staff. Next slide. So first topic on the agenda is what are forever chemicals? And we can go to the next slide. So first thing to note is that PFAS, as it's commonly called, is not a single chemical, but it is an umbrella term that's describing thousands and thousands of synthetic chemicals. And the important part to remember here, a couple important parts to remember. Number one, drinking water utilities are not producing PFAS. They're not producing these chemicals. Manufacturers are producing these chemicals for various uses in consumer products that we as consumers use every day. But they make their way into the drinking water supply, and drinking water utilities are required by the EPA now to remove those from the drinking water before it goes to the transmission and distribution system. So you see the umbrella there. There are short chain, branch chain, and long chain PFAS, and really the important part there is that each of these 3 types of chains of PFAS have some characteristics that make some treatment technologies better at removing them than others. And the bottom of the slide, you see the CF bond, so the fluorine and carbon bond in these compounds is something that makes them incredibly thermally and chemically stable. It makes them really hard to break down. So that characteristic makes them great for a lot of consumer products. It also makes them extremely difficult to remove, impossible to remove with conventional treatment methods. So that requires additional treatment processes for existing water treatment plants. We gave this, so as a side note, we gave this presentation to the board last week. At any point, if you have questions, please, you don't have to wait till the end to ask questions. And also, I'll be looking up there to see if anybody's going like this and want to speed up. Just please let us know. So we can go to the next slide. So where are PFAS found? PFAS chemicals are, easy way to say it, they're everywhere. Common consumer products is in paper and packaging. You see it in a lot of food packages. Firefighting foams is a common use for PFOS specifically. Athleisure wear, lots of clothing. There's PFAS compounds included or incorporated in that clothing. And the picture of the polar bear is not eating Big Macs, hopefully. It doesn't wear rain jackets, but the picture is shown there because even in remote locations when you wouldn't expect to see PFAS, there's been polar bears where the blood has been sampled and accumulated levels of PFAS have been found in the blood of the polar bears. So next slide. Humans are exposed to PFAS in a multitude of ways. So the graphic on the left shows just that the multiple pathways, how we are exposed to PFAS. The two pie charts on the right are helpful to study though, because you see, and the text might be a little small, but the largest part of the pie chart for both PFOA and PFAS, which coincidentally are the two that are still being regulated with a maximum contaminant level by the EPA. The most prominent exposure route is through food, and then in second place for both of those is water, and then dust is in the green color, so 9% of our exposure is through dust. We can go to the next slide. So there's a lot of content on this slide, but what I want you to take away is, one, again, drinking water utilities are not producing these PFAS chemicals. At the top and the left of the slide are various processes that produce the PFAS chemicals. What happens is they make their way into our waterways. Multiple ways they can make their way into our waterways, but one of those is through storm sewer, sanitary sewer. And if they do that, then they make their way through into a wastewater treatment facility. And today's wastewater treatment facilities, again, conventional treatment, they don't have the technology to remove the PFAS from the water. So the treated wastewater from a wastewater treatment facility then goes out to a river or a receiving water body. Any drinking water utilities that are downstream of that effluent, of that discharge into the river, then their supply has PFAS chemicals in it. And if that water treatment plant isn't equipped with PFAS treatment technology, then the PFAS chemicals just make their way right through the treatment plant and to the end user. You see the home in the kind of the middle top left of the slide. We can go next slide, please. All right, so any questions on what forever chemicals are before we move on?
I have a question on a particular chemical. Is fluoride one of those types of chemicals?
Fluoride is not, but fluorinated compounds are. Fluoride itself is not. Okay, so we can go to the next slide. So what is the EPA requiring utilities like Georgetown Municipal to do? In May of 2024, the EPA finalized a national drinking water standard, and that national drinking water standard resulted in the table that you see to the top right. There were 5 different PFAS chemicals that were identified, and they were assigned an MCL. MCL is basically the concentration that you have to stay below. So it's called a maximum contaminant level. If you have a contaminant that is regulated by the EPA, you cannot have that contaminant at a level higher than that concentration. So you see for the top 2, the MCL was 4 parts per trillion. So this isn't milligrams per liter, it isn't micrograms per liter, it's nanograms per liter, 4 nanograms per liter, a very, very small concentration. And then you can see the MCL for 3 additional PFAS compounds. And the last row on the table is a hazard index where it measures mixtures of different proportions of those 5 different PFAS. And you have to stay in a unitless index less than 1.0. The bottom of this slide shows a timeline. And the important part here, if we go to the next slide, so the second bullet, I kind of skipped over the second bullet, but American Water Works Association and American Chemical Society, they challenged the EPA with their rulemaking approach, and it was mostly around the hazard index calculation, how that was calculated, because you weren't regulating a single contaminant, but it was a kind of an obtuse mixture of contaminants. So they brought lawsuits against the EPA, and as a result of that, in May of 2025, the EPA announced that they intend to make some modifications to the regulation. So you see the orange marks out on the table there. The MCL of 4 parts per trillion is still going to be in effect for PFOA and PFOS, PFOA and PFOS. Another change that happened, or that is anticipated to happen with these modifications to the rule, is that the implementation deadline, which is in that maroon red star there, kind of to the center right of the table, was April 26th of 2029. If these modifications actually go through, the deadline will be extended 2 years to April 26, 2031. And we can go to the next slide. So this isn't an issue that is specific to Georgetown Municipal. It isn't an issue that's specific to Kentucky or even the Midwest region. It is all throughout the United States. And what this slide shows is, well, I'll back up and talk about UCMR. So according to the EPA, if a contaminant is not yet regulated by the EPA, but it is of growing concern, then utilities must monitor it under what's called the UCMR, and it's aptly named the Unregulated Contaminant Monitoring Rule. And this is the 5th version of the Unregulated Contaminant Monitoring Rule. It required utilities across the United States to monitor for PFOA and PFOS, collect samples, and then learn what the concentrations were. So we can go to the next slide. So that just shows a picture of the entire U.S. This shows closer in our region, so Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, and Ohio. And then we'll go one more slide. This is Kentucky itself. So if you can see it at the bottom right, there's a little value that says 37, and it says above threshold. So there are 37 sample locations in the state of Kentucky where PFAS concentrations of PFOA and PFOS were in excess of that 4 parts per trillion. So one more slide. So specifically for Georgetown, Georgetown conducted the UCMR 5 sampling in 2023. And click one more slide, please. Yeah, there we go. So the orange box there shows the 2 PFAS species that are still going to be regulated with an MCL by EPA. And you can see that the sample results February, May, October, and November in 2023, particularly for PFOS, the running annual average does exceed that 4 parts per trillion. So that's why we're here today, talking about the need for PFAS treatment at the Georgetown Municipal Water Treatment Plant. We can go to the next slide.
So PFOA is below?
Oh, yeah, can we go back one slide? So you picked up on that, that's perceptive there. So you do see that the November sampling for PFOA was above the 4 parts per trillion. But the other 3 earlier sampling periods in February, May, and October for PFOA showed either 0 or below the practical quantitation limit.
Okay.
And in EPA's eyes, if it's below the practical quantitation limit, then it counts as a 0. So you average those 3 zeros with the 9.3, and your running annual average is actually below the 4.
You may want to put the zeros or non-detect in there.
Okay, so we can go to the next slide. Specifically, the compliance strategy for Georgetown Municipal, and next slide. So in December of last year, Georgetown Municipal issued a request for qualifications. Hazen and Sawyer responded to that request for qualifications in January, and we were selected for the PFAS treatment assessment and analysis. So next slide. It just shows an organizational chart of the project team that we have to deliver the project. Not all here tonight, of course, but the little colored dots next to the name show, what office each of our staff, home office each of our staff is from. And the key next to select team members shows on the next slide the key personnel for the project. So again, Trey DeRoche will be the project manager. Kurt Zinder out of our Lexington office will be the project director. And just a point of clarification, project manager versus project director, I described what my role would be before, but as project director, Kurt's major role is to ensure that we are applying the appropriate staff resources to the project. We'll have 2 technical advisors. The first one is Eric Rosenfeld. He's out of our Richmond, Virginia office, and he is Hazen's corporate, so company-wide drinking water practice lead. Connor Murray out of our Denver, Colorado office. He'll also serve as a technical advisor, and he is our corporate lead specifically for PFAS treatment. And last but not least, Lindsay Hassenauer out of our Cincinnati, Ohio office. So once we, as part of the project, we will evaluate various treatment technologies, then we'll select the most practical one and complete a conceptual design for that. And Lindsay Hassenauer will lead the conceptual design portion. So next slide. Any questions before we move forward? Okay. So how are we going to do it? So this slide shows the 5-step approach that we're proposing to complete the project. And as I walk through it, I'll say next slide. There'll be some more bullets that'll show up underneath one. So you can go ahead and do next slide. So the first step is to identify the applicable treatment methods. While they are difficult to remove and separate from the raw water flow, there are a variety of methods that you can use for PFAS treatment. Not all of them are applicable for Georgetown Municipal. They're site-specific, and there's a lot of characteristics that go into that determination. But we do plan on looking at the ones that are in bullet points below step 1 there. So fixed bed absorbents, powdered absorbents, high-pressure membranes, and filter absorbers. We're going to look at all those different technologies. Just a quick comparison for general understanding. Fixed bed absorbents are a vessel that contains a volume of a media, like a carbon media or a resin. It stays stationary in that vessel. Water is pumped up and it is allowed to pass through that media. And then while it passes through that media, the media is absorbing the PFAS compounds to it. And then clean water is coming out, or PFAS treated water is coming out the other end of the fixed bed. Conversely, powdered absorbents, such as powder activated carbon, is mixed into a slurry mixture and injected into the water, similar to other chemical feeds that are used for conventional treatment. High-pressure membranes, think of simply a filter that is small enough to allow clean water to pass through, but not allow the PFAS compounds to pass through. And filter absorbers, we want to investigate the possibility of exchanging out, replacing the existing filter media in the water treatment plant's conventional filters with the GAC media to see how well that would treat for PFAS. There are some geometric and existing infrastructure limitations to that, but we do want to look at it as an option. So next slide. So how are we going to evaluate the treatment effectiveness? Again, I said there's a variety of technologies that we can use. Not all of them are going to be the best applicable for Georgetown Municipal. So we're going to do adsorbent modeling and jar testing for these various treatment technologies. And next slide. So the residuals management, this is an important consideration because no matter what treatment technology is selected, there are going to be some waste stream that has to be managed. Based on whether you go with something like a fixed bed or a powdered absorbent, the most substantial contribution to that waste stream is going to be different in nature. But no matter what, there will be some waste stream and some residuals that have to be managed after the treatment process. Hazardous implications, there are some potential hazardous implications with the waste streams that would have to be considered. And then going along with that, if there are hazardous implications with the waste stream, you could assume that the disposal cost is going to be more expensive for those options. Moving into costs, next slide. So we want to look at both capital costs and operations and maintenance costs. So capital costs being the upfront capital that you have to put forth to build the infrastructure on the plant site, and then O&M costs being for the fixed bed adsorbents, changing out that media. So eventually, all the sites, the adsorption sites that are able to capture the PFAS compounds, eventually they'll be exhausted, they'll be used up. There'll be no more available sites for PFAS compounds to adsorb to in the media. And when that happens, the media has to be changed out. Depending on what fixed bed media you use, you could potentially have the manufacturer of the media come out and change out your media for you, bring it, reactivate it, and then bring it back to your site. So you're a little bit more sustainable using your same media. That's applicable for granular activated carbon. What you see is GAC there. Ion exchange is another adsorbent that is available for fixed bed treatment. And the technology is almost there for regenerating ion exchange resin, but it's not quite there yet. So with ion exchange, you're basically disposing of that media and getting new each time. And then the last one, next slide, finally, once we fully evaluate all these technologies and find out which one is the most applicable for Georgetown Municipal, we'll decide on the treatment and compliance strategy to move forward with a conceptual design. So next slide. Oh, you have a question on that slide?
Yeah. So
can we move back?
Yeah. So basically, all this is being done on Royal Spring supply water for Georgetown.
Mm-hmm.
Recognizing that Georgetown has other supplies, treated water supply that come in, do we know what the other suppliers, water supplies are doing? Are they going through the same process we are, first of all? And then second, is there going to be any evaluation of the potential blending of two different treatment technologies into distribution system and any impacts on that?
Yes, yeah. So the good news is, two-part answer here. No utility is going to skirt the rules from the EPA. Every utility that shows that they have levels of PFAS above that 4 parts per trillion in their source water are going to be required to comply and employ some treatment technology to get that level down below the 4 parts per trillion. The second part of the answer, the good news is that the two other wholesale providers to Georgetown Municipal, so Kentucky American and Frankfurt Plant Board, neither one of those showed up when we looked at the UCMR5 data as showing hits above that 4 parts per trillion. So no, they're not going through the same process that you guys are right now because they don't have a level of PFAS in their raw water that exceeds that 4 parts per trillion. But if future monitoring does show that those levels rise above 4 parts per trillion, then they will be required to.
Right.
And then on the blending part, with this particular treatment technology, with PFAS removal, there's less risk of characteristics of blending actually affecting your distribution system water quality. And that is because there's not a residual that's being added to the water. Everything that is used to treat the water is taken back out at the plant site.
Thank you.
I have a question. So is this totally unfunded mandate we're just, every water treatment plant that's over that limit has to find their own way to pay for it? Or is the government helping some?
Yes and no. So there's some positive news on this in that PFAS treatment is eligible for emerging contaminant grants. And every year, emerging contaminant grants awards money to all 50 states and territories. In fiscal year 2025, a little over $945 million is awarded overall in emerging contaminant grants. Sounds like a big ticket item, but when you look at all the utilities around the U.S., it's really a drop in the bucket. Of that $945 million, $10 million is awarded to the state of Kentucky. So I would encourage all Kentucky utilities who are going through this, which there are 25 different utilities for those 37 detections. There's 25 different utilities. Definitely, apply for grant funding. And I believe Georgetown Municipal already has and is in the process of continuing to apply for that grant funding.
Second question, are there, it's interesting to me that we're above the level, but the two bigger utilities that feed us are not. Do we know why we're higher?
Well, so it all depends on the source. So your source is Royal Springs, so like
Right.
a groundwater source.
Yeah.
And it's difficult for me to pinpoint the contributor to that PFAS. I know that there's some funding coming from a couple of manufacturers that have admitted they contribute to the problem for Georgetown. But Kentucky American and Frankfurt Plant Board, their source water is different pools on the Kentucky River, and there just hadn't been the PFAS hits on that Kentucky River.
So if we can identify the manufacturers that are contributing, can they do something before we have to do something so that we can get our levels, so that we don't have to pay for this mediation? If the manufacturers can do it at their costs, it might help us.
They certainly should.
Could or should?
They certainly should.
Okay.
I wouldn't say that they would be held responsible before drinking water utilities. Another one of the challenges is that there's a limited amount. Remember, there are thousands of PFAS compounds out there. Just 2 of them right now are regulated. So unfortunately, some manufacturers, once one of them becomes regulated, they change their formulation a little bit and have produced the same consumer products with a different PFAS compound that is not yet regulated.
And so do they know that they're contributing? Have they been notified?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Maybe we
All right,
could
we go to the next slide.
do something along those lines.
It is unfortunate, yeah, it is unfortunate because no drinking water utilities are contributing to this problem, but you are responsible for footing the bill on the downstream end, unfortunately. So from a high-level view, there's a couple different general methods of removing PFAS from water. I talked about adsorption at length already, the GAC and ion exchange as a fixed bed example, and high-pressure membranes or reverse osmosis is the other high-level approach. There's a lot of detail that's not on this slide, but you can see a couple of the advantages and disadvantages of each of those. Just note that these are both PFAS separation techniques, so you're separating the PFAS from the water that goes into your distribution system. You're not technically destroying the PFAS, so those are those residual waste streams that we were talking about earlier. There are some PFAS destruction techniques that are in research right now, but the out to the side says might not be ready for prime time. They're just not cost effective to stand up at an operating water treatment plant at this time. So next slide. And what we want to get at, you can click one more time. What we want to get at for Georgetown Municipal is a matrix similar to this that compares all of the technologies that we're evaluating on the left-hand side among various criteria on the top to get a utility-specific matrix where you end up with the most practical solution, most practical treatment technology kind of rises to the top. In the orange rectangle to the left, again, we're going to look at granular activated carbon, ion exchange. Novel adsorbents is another one that we want to look at. Novel adsorbents is similar to the other two fixed bed adsorbents. They're just called novel adsorbents because various manufacturers are producing adsorbents that they think are effective at removing PFAS, haven't been tested widespread yet, but they want to compete with granular activated carbon and ion exchange and could potentially save some cost. So we do want to look at one or two novel adsorbents, as well as powder activated carbon and high pressure membranes. I won't go through everything on this slide, that would be super boring, but one thing to show is the second column from the left. You'll note that granular activated carbon, ion exchange, and high pressure membranes are listed on the EPA's best available technology for PFAS treatment. If you're wondering why we're looking at powder activated carbon, even though it's not on EPA's best available technology, that would be a valid question. It is a valid treatment technology, and sometimes it's more applicable for a drinking water utility, particularly because you see the capital cost, O&M cost, and footprint are advantageous. So low capital costs, low O&M costs, and a smaller footprint generally than the fixed bed adsorbents that you see in the EPA's best available technology. And in no way does a technology not being listed on the EPA's best available technology exclude it from being implemented. There are several utilities in Kentucky and nationwide that are using powder activated carbon successfully for their PFAS treatment. Any questions on this before we move to the next? Okay, next slide. So how do we evaluate the treatment effectiveness? A tried and true method is to do a full-scale pilot where you set up 4-inch diameter PVC columns that are as tall as they need to be, sometimes 9-10 feet tall, this is for fixed bed adsorbents, filling those columns up with the adsorbents that you're going to test, and then running your plant water through them and measuring the time it takes to achieve something called breakthrough. Breakthrough is when PFAS compounds no longer have any more adsorption sites to attach to in that media, and then they pass through with the water exiting the media. So really, treatment effectiveness is how long can we go until we reach breakthrough, or how much water can we pass through this media until we see breakthrough. Full-scale pilot is great at determining the effectiveness of various media. The only drawback is that it takes a very long time to reach that breakthrough period. So in terms of 12 months or even longer, sometimes to reach breakthrough. And that's great. However, sometimes utilities don't have that long to wait until they reach breakthrough. So solution is the photo on the left. It's called a rapid small-scale column test. Same concept as a full-scale pilot, but you're looking at a test tube size of your media as opposed to a 4-inch diameter, 10-foot tall column of your media. So you reach breakthrough a lot faster. You're able to pass through the relative volume of water through that media in a lot quicker period. So the results that you would expect 12 months or longer to see in a full-scale pilot, you'll be able to reach within 3 to 4 weeks with a rapid small-scale column test. So that's the test that we do for fixed bed adsorbents. For PAC, again, this is the technology that is injected to the flow stream. The apparatus on the right is a jar testing apparatus, and this is used for PAC testing. So we can test multiple PAC powder activated carbon products and various dosage rates. So what is the best PAC product for treating the PFAS for Georgetown municipal water, and what dosage is the best at removing the PFAS. So next slide. I won't spend too much time on the residuals management. I think we talked about it earlier, but we'll click one more for the next slide. Again, based on the technology that you select, the most substantial amount of residuals is different. For a fixed bed, most of the residuals you're dealing with is flushing volume, flushing water. So you do have to flush a certain quantity, certain volume of water through a GAC media, for example, before you're able to send that water to your distribution system. Think of it, if any of you have a refrigerator filter at home, whenever you change that filter out, it says, go ahead and run your water for 4 gallons before you drink the water. Similar to that for GAC. That's initially right when you get your GAC, and then regularly you'll do a little bit of a backwash as well, and that backwash is wasted as well. For powder activated carbon, unlike the fixed bed where you have a vessel where your media is contained in a stationary location, that powder activated carbon that is injected into the flow stream, well, whenever the velocity slows down and it is given the opportunity to settle out, it's going to settle out. And the reason we brought this up here is that during a site visit and in some discussions with Georgetown staff, we learned that the existing residuals removal system may require some improvements, particularly if we went with something like a powder activated carbon. Any questions on this before we move ahead?
So on your backwash activities, so is that fall under the potential hazardous materials, or can that just go to wastewater?
The potential
discharge?
hazardous materials that we were referring to earlier are specific to the powder activated carbon. So,
Immediate, so, okay.
Lots of utilities eventually will landfill their residuals. And if those are non-hazardous residuals, it's okay to landfill them. The CERCLA regulation and RCRA regulation recently announced that they intend to potentially consider PFAS-laden residuals as hazardous constituents. And if that is successful, then there is a chance that if your residuals have a certain concentration, if they exceed a threshold, then they'll be classified as hazardous materials, so the disposal costs will be a lot more expensive than your general landfilling. The drinking water utilities in Kentucky do have the opportunity to use a special waste permit, and it is almost specific to drinking water utilities where you have a large volume waste, low contaminant level. You're able to apply for a special waste landfill permit. Louisville Water actually was successful at doing that and classifying there, because they use powder activated carbon for PFAS treatment. They were able to use a special waste permit and consider it beneficial reuse. So it's a potential risk. It also can turn into a potential benefit.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go to the next slide. So this is just a figure that we included in our statement of qualifications. It talks about 3 options that we really wanted to hit in more detail. Option 1 was the potential powder activated carbon. Option 2 was the fixed bed adsorbent, again, either granular activated carbon or ion exchange. And option 3 was retrofitting the existing filters into a filter adsorber. One point I wanted to clarify in this graphic, if you look over on option 1, which is kind of to the top right, the major capital investment for powder activated carbon is a storage silo. So you have to continuously deliver the powder activated carbon to the site and store it in a silo while it is used. And you want to have 14 to 21 days of storage on site so you ensure that you don't run out and you have adequate supply. We do not foresee the need to have 2 silos, even though you see 2 silos on this figure. This is just 2 potential options based on available space. We have learned since with some discussions with Georgetown Municipal that the site that is shown closer to the park there is not preferable. So the one we're leaning to is the one that's closer to the road, so kind of to the bottom right in the green space, up on the hill, closer to the plant access road, would likely be the proposed location for a pack silo. Any questions on that slide? Okay, I think we're almost done. One more slide, schedule. Okay, so on schedule, the gist of this slide, I know there's a lot of line items on there. Just wanted to point out that our current assignment is to run through the feasibility analysis and conceptual design report, and we're planning on having that done in October 27th, I think is the date that we have on there, October of this year. And we're not going to present, obviously not going to present to the board on October 27th, just at the next available board meeting. after October 27th. We do have 3 workshops with Georgetown Municipal throughout the process. So a treatment technology workshop in July, a conceptual design workshop in August, and then a cost schedule and risk workshop in September on the way to that conceptual design report. The last slide that I have is an overall implementation schedule. So one more, yeah, thank you. Again, the current EPA deadline to have a system up and running is April 26, 2029. We anticipate the schedule to be extended to 2031, like we talked about way earlier in the presentation. But this is just, I think at this point it's responsible to work with the deadline that we have that we know is true until that extension happens. So if we completed the feasibility and conceptual design report in October of this year, we just wanted to look ahead and see how are we in terms of meeting that 2029 deadline. If you add an 11-month design period to that and a 15-month construction period, you're bumping right up against the April of 2029. So you're not behind the 8 ball for sure. You're right on schedule to move through the conceptual design and then to design and construction for this. Any questions?
Question, do you have an guesstimated cost of what all of this is going to cost?
I think it's too early at this point to know. There are vast differences between powder activated carbon and granular activated carbon, the fixed bed versus something that's injected to the flow stream. We will have a much better sense in October when we pick the conceptual design, or when we pick the treatment technology and complete the conceptual design. I'd be afraid to give you a number at this point.
Okay. The reason I ask is because in the past we've been surprised by the water company with cost of things, and that was actually, I guess maybe Jeff could answer this. Is this potential what's coming to us? Is that part of the bond money? Did we anticipate this with the bond money that we approved earlier?
Jeff, you want to come up, please? Yeah.
Yes, a portion of the bond proceeds would go toward this effort, but we don't have, as Trey has said, we don't have any cost estimates, so we don't know if that's adequate or not. We also got money from the Senate last year that was $2 million.
Actually, sorry to interrupt you. If you click 2 slides ahead, I think there's a breakdown on some.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, this is very helpful. The class action settlements that Trey alluded to, we got, we joined 2 class action lawsuits with 3M and DuPont. We've collected just over $900,000. There will be additional payments on that lawsuit. On both of those lawsuits, we think we've gotten the bulk of the money. The rest of the collections on those will be relatively minor as compared to $900,000. And then we'll receive grant funding of a little over $2 million. So we've got roughly $3 million here, and we've got a couple of $1 million in the bond proceeds as well. So we have about $5 million, and we're hoping that that will be adequate to make in any kind of modifications we need to make based on what Trey and Hazen find out.
So is there no vehicle to try to get these 2 manufacturers to put pressure on them to get these levels down so that we don't have to go through this huge, I mean, it seems to me that there should be some responsibility.
I don't disagree with you.
Do what?
I do not disagree with you.
So
I can't speak to, I'm not exactly sure how the class actions work in the law
maybe we need
firm.
to have some conversation legally about what is required federally and, you know, how these things work. But it seems to me like if we just have 2 manufacturers that are causing this problem for the city water company, and they might be able to take some of the mitigation efforts, then maybe by 2029, we don't have to incur these huge costs.
I imagine it's probably like Trey described. course, I'm speaking about a class action settlement that I've not read, but I imagine it's a situation where they've agreed to pay some damages of a certain amount, and they've slightly changed their process to fall within a different type of chemical that's not being monitored, as
Right.
Trey was talking about. I would imagine that that's,
I mean, we have some time to maybe try to get into some discussions, I would think.
I could certainly pursue that through our legal, see where we got.
Jeff, 3M, that's located in what, Cynthiana?
I believe so.
So where's the DuPont plant located at?
I'm not sure there's one near here.
Okay.
I'm not sure there has to be one located in the community that receives some of the funding. It's considered a downstream
We're just
impact.
Yeah, we're just in that class action with them.
Correct.
Okay.
And Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
just playing devil's advocate here, the stream that runs into Royal Springs goes right up through the Barton Brothers Farm, up through Kentucky Horse Park, up through Coldstream Farm into downtown Lexington. So to say in pinpoint that, oh, it's this company that's doing it, you got to remember, you've got a railroad line that at least 20-some trains a day that roll through here. The interstate that rolls through here, I-64 and I-75, you know, all the vehicles going up and down the road that, you know, the water leaks into and goes into that stream that fills right into Royal Springs. So, you know, just, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I'm not saying that, you know, that we shouldn't look at it all, but, you know, there's a whole lot more at play, and you back me up if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, tell me so. But, you know, there's a whole lot more that's at play there that's, you know, looking into our water system, so.
I think maybe they're saying that those are the two companies that we know about, but that there's a whole lot more that contribute.
Well, sure.
Yeah, like you saw on that earlier
Yeah.
slide, you know, everything from Big Mac
But it's
containers.
just interesting that the feeders to us don't have these problems. And we've identified two manufacturers that are significantly affecting our water supply.
This whole thing is much more complicated than that, because it's, you're talking Kentucky River versus underground streams. And basically, this is ubiquitous material that have been around for a long, long, long time. And there's lots of changes that have historically gone on and continue to go on to address this, but this is kind of the aftermath. And with increasing technology and better testing and things like that, that's why EPA is does what they do, is to continue to protect, so.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, is that it? Thank you. All right, next, let's see. I guess we have to do a vote on this here. I need a motion for item A, Hazen and Sawyer for $231,000. Is that right? Okay, $231,000. I need a motion.
Motion there.
A motion made by Mr. Minke, second by Ms. Sams. Do I have any questions and or comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. All right. Let's go to item B, customer usage update.
Sure, so this is the first time we'll have the full version of the report that we've been working on, if you want to go to the next slide. So for February, we did 91 total leak checks. 55 of those, no leak were detected. 36 of those did detect a leak. Just a reminder from last time, when we say we detected a leak, it's a continuous flow at the meter. So there are intermittent and conditional leaks that do not always show up when we do our leak checks. So 52 of those were initiated by customers calling in and requesting a leak check. 39 of those we initiated by reviewing the meters and the usage. So total 15,404 water customers for the month of February, which would be 0.59% of our customers requested or received a leak check. The next slide. So this is leak adjustment outcomes. This is essentially how many leak adjustment or courtesy adjustments we received in the month of February. I wish it was as clean as this is how many leak checks and out of those this is how many adjustments we got, but it's not necessarily that crystal clear. So if you had a leak in January and you were trying to figure out how to fix it or that took a long time, you would then submit your things in February, and that would be a February leak adjustment or courtesy adjustment. So month of February we had 47 total. We wrote down how many came from each category of leaks. So you'll see number 1, especially in the winter, 19 hidden and underground leaks. Then we have 2 for crawl space, 2 behind a wall, 2 equipment malfunctions, 2 for the water heater, 7 toilet leaks, 7 automatic waterers or outside hose spigots, 3 indoor faucets dripping or left on, 1 pool adjustment, and then we had 1 unknown residential customer and 1 unknown commercial customer. So just to clarify, leak adjustments, we have a specific policy that we give leak adjustments within. There are also water waste conditions that fall outside of our leak adjustment policy. So for those, we offer courtesy adjustments. So they can essentially kind of the same format as a leak adjustment, but it's a courtesy, so they're essentially saying this is outside of the policy, but we're asking for some help on the bill. They can get 2 of those within a 5-year period, and that's consistent across the board. So we're gonna track both of these leak adjustment and courtesy adjustments for you as time goes on. Do we have any questions about this specific?
So whenever you're doing an adjustment, so have you confirmed and closed and identified the problem, the actual problem, and confirmed that it has been resolved?
They have to confirm that their usage has gone back down to their normal average usage. Sometimes, in some cases, like this unknown residential customer, their usage did come back down and they weren't able to identify the cause. And I think a key thing to remember is that we are licensed to work up to the meter. Anything past the meter has to be a licensed plumber, so we can't go into their homes and help them identify the cause of the leak.
So you're saying that it's a common practice to do an adjustment? It's not?
Yes.
The reason that you do it is because they've shown that they're trying to take care of the problem, or they have taken care of the problem?
Correct.
That the reason you give an adjustment is to help the customer?
Correct.
Okay.
You've got 47 total that the leak adjustment came out. How many did you get that no leaks were found?
Out of those adjustments, that's the unknown.
No. 3. People that called in and said, hey, I've got a problem, and there was no leaks. How many of those that was found no leak, but yet they still had a spiked water?
It's kind of difficult. So when customers call in, like we have this, if you go back 1 slide, we have the initiation. So like 14 of the customers that called in had a leak, 38 did not. But sometimes we have customers who hear like water running through their walls or something similar who don't actually have a spike in their usage who did request a leak check. So not all of the leak checks are really high usage customers.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
From what we're hearing, there's a lot of people that have contacted us about spikes in their water bills. How many of those, nothing was found?
So the 91, we don't have all of the outcomes for yet. The reason that we can't directly check just out of these leak checks is because a lot of customers we don't hear back from. So they'll get a leak check and say it's negative, and we'll try and reach out. Our customer service team does try and follow up, and they won't get a response. So the only thing that we have to be able to go off of, at least our perception, is the leak adjustment outcomes. And like I said, just for the ones that we received in February, only 1 of those was an unknown spike who's gone back down, who is a residential customer.
Did any of those result in meter replacements?
I don't believe, well, One of them, the unknown residential customer, I know that we did replace the meter.
And when you replace a meter, what do you do with it? Do you send it for test, or, I mean, is it evaluated to see if there's a potential issue with it?
It can be, so it can be third-party tested. I don't know that they send them every time, but if it's requested. Kind of the policy is that we can send it for third-party testing. There is a fee. If it comes back that the meter is malfunctioning, then we credit that fee back to the customer's account. I will say that I hesitate to emphasize that to a lot of customers because most of the time it is not the meter. Meters are very simple mechanical devices, so most of the time we've sent meters to be tested. They're very, very accurate, and a lot of the times they're actually under-registering the usage. So we can pull out old meters, but we can put in a brand-new meter, and sometimes the usage does go up because it's actually registering more of the water that's flowing through the meter.
Maybe getting ahead of your presentation, but when you replace a meter, is it possible, and I don't know if you can answer this or anyone else, when you replace a meter, wouldn't it be beneficial to send that meter off to be tested? And would it be possible, once you replace that meter, go out and check it, do readings on it, say once a week, and just see what it's doing?
Yeah, I can let the team know. I don't know that that's something that we do every single time, but
I'm just throwing that
sure.
out, to try to help, the customers and understand what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I think right now they're trying to toe the line in the cost
Right.
of doing that versus,
But, I mean, if you have somebody that's, brings in 2,400 gallons one month and 10,000 the next month, I
Sure.
think you would want to, understand that cause and try to troubleshoot that, and get to the bottom of it, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
And we've had several that have that I have been in contact, Ms. Barber's one of them, that they have a normal water bill, they have a huge spike, the next month it goes back down to normal. And it's not the same place twice. So have we checked the computer in the vehicle that's doing the reading? Have we, not a problem with the meter, not a problem with the transmitter, but the receiving vehicle, is there an issue? Could there potentially be an issue with that, or have we checked that out?
We have checked that. When I first started looking into this, I sat down with our IT manager and he kind of explained the process. The computer is kept up to date. The other thing to keep in mind is that our meters run very much like an odometer. And so if your meter starts at 70,000 gallons in a month and then you use 5,000 gallons, the meter will read 75,000 gallons. So if you had a meter error and it way over registered, the next month it would look like your usage has gone backwards because it has to fall in line, or it would have to have that same error over and over and over and over to be mathematically logical. Does that make sense?
Makes sense, but it's still, you still have a lot of customers out here that are scratching their head going, I've got a normal bill, I've got a spike, I've got a normal bill.
Right.
No leaks whatsoever.
And
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, in speaking with a lot of our customer service reps, trying to also wrap my head around what's going on, they gave me some examples of things that they had seen in the past that were originally unknown, and like water softener stuck in a cycle, a pool autofill valve stuck, flapper temporary stuck open, which I know we know about the toilets, unauthorized use by a third party like a landscaper filling up tanks on their truck, irrigation system malfunctions. So there are situations and conditions that can spike a bill and then have it come back down to normal without an explanation.
Mr. Chris?
Oh, yeah.
Then I'll come to you.
Sure. Is there a specific set of criteria that the water company looks at when you get a billing spike, or is there a checklist of a few things that if a leak was not detected, where you make the decision if you're going to do a credit back to the customer that month? And if so, say for instance, of the 38 customers that are in that one graphic, approximately how many have been given a credit back for the unexplained billing spike for that month that they called about?
I can't say out of the 39, because like I said, we don't always hear back from a lot of them. We could maybe try and track it for next month, because usually for these February ones, that's when we'll receive their adjustment requests in March. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
I will say, like, if, as long as they're following the steps, so they've identified either if there's a leak or not a leak, then as long as we go back and see their usage has come back to normal, typically they do fall within a courtesy adjustment, and they receive that. None of the ones that requested an adjustment for the month of February got denied an adjustment, leak or courtesy adjustment.
Okay, great. And a couple other quick questions. Are you seeing any of these unusual spikes in any particular parts of the county or city, or is it just spread out all over? You know, just wondering if any part of our infrastructure is maybe a little bit older or has some meter issues more than the other.
Not that I'm currently aware of, but from our end, we only, like in February, we only have one unknown spike, like formally classified as unknown, because we haven't heard back from a lot of the other people that we did the leak checks for. So we have one data point for the month of February to go off of. So that's why we do try and encourage all of our customers, if they have any concerns in their usage, they need to call our customer service team so we can get that into our data spreadsheet and continue tracking it. Because like I said, from our end right now, we only have one unknown spike for last month.
Okay, great. And one last question for now. We've heard some citizens talk about, and even maybe we've heard us talk a little bit about, potentially doing a third-party audit to look at everything. Do you think that would you welcome that?
Yeah, definitely. I've talked to a few members of the team, and it's something that we're totally and completely open for. We want to do whatever we can to enhance the transparency of the water company, and if that's something that we've identified as a need, we're welcome. They're welcome. And all of you too, I know that you receive bills. If you ever want to come down to the water company to review the specific bills, it's difficult here because I can't come bring bills to the podium and go through them with you. But if you have concerns from your constituents, you're welcome to come down to the office. We've done it before with some council members.
All right, okay. I think Sandra
Just
had a
one
question.
I might have missed it, but what is the cost for the customer to get the meter checked? What is that cost?
I think it's $100. Do you know, Jeff? I believe it's $100. I can check and get back to you
Okay.
for sure, though.
Thank you, please.
Okay, Mr. Mickey?
Yeah. So, there's lots of potential reasons that are out there, and you've looked at a lot of things. But I guess I go back to, have you looked at, or what processes have you looked at in breaking down the process from start to finish in being able to identify or confirm that all the processes are working? So for instance, back to one of the things Todd was talking about, you've got a meter that is like an odometer, like you said, and then you've got a digital component that the billing is done off of. Have we confirmed the digital against the meter to make sure that they're tracking and those kinds of things? So the granularity of the accuracy of the digital activity versus the mechanical, which is the actual source of the data to which to do the billing. So again, going back and digging deep into each of the process steps to understand, is there an issue or not? I think that's the thing that we need to be hearing about.
Sure.
In addition to all the potentials that are out there of leaks, because there's a lot of them.
Right.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, one other thing. I've heard some confusion from homeowners wondering, say, for example, whenever a leak is confirmed with their responsibilities with the water or sewer pipe in their own yards, would you be able to clarify where the city's responsibility ends with regard to piping and where the homeowners begins? Say, for instance, in these instances where maybe tree roots have damaged a water pipe in a yard. Some homeowners have reached out thinking that that's a city or a water company issue. Would you be able to explain that better?
Yeah, so the water company is responsible for anything up to including the meter. Anything past the meter is the homeowner's responsibility.
And then one other final question, then that's it.
Okay.
What steps do you feel would be a good improvement to be able to improve communication and transparency with the customers who have said that they've got issues with the communication and transparency? Have you guys already taken some pretty big steps that way? Are you working on some additional measures for that?
Yeah, a big thing that we identified when I was first hired was the website. I think we're working with a website now that's over at least 20 years old. So the new website is finished. It launches April 1st. That's kind of the sweet spot that we identified in the billing cycle for our customer service team to flip over. With that, we'll have a new secure form provider and be able to accept a lot of things online. So kind of our overall goal is to keep the benefits of your local small town utility, like having our local customer service office where you can walk in and get help, but also giving the services that our competitor, bigger water utilities, do provide. So with the website also launches a blog, a strategic communications calendar that integrates social media and things like that. And I have been tracking, since I've been here, a lot of potential topics that we could really educate the customers on. And even things like this, being able to have a website page that very clearly talks about the types of leaks that you can have, what the process is going to look like, what we're doing out in the community and things, I think are all very important.
Right. Yeah, some customers may not be big fans of you launching that on April Fool's Day. If you can move it up one day.
Yes, I have gotten that feedback many times, but they say that's the best time, and I don't want to impede on their work, so that's what we're doing.
All right.
Yeah.
And does the website tell the customers step by step what to do if they feel like they have a problem that needs to be looked at, like come in, call us, fill out an affidavit, step 1, 2, 3, 4?
Yeah.
Because I think that we hear from a lot of people that perhaps are not necessarily following through with the process that you all need in order to either figure it out or to move forward with some kind of remediation. So is that on the website clearly?
On the new website, it is. Yes.
Okay, so I think that's an important thing for us to get out to the public and to encourage them to follow through with those steps.
Right.
Because if they don't, it can't be helped ultimately.
Yeah, we would really like the customers from leak check initiation all the way through to keep us updated with what's going on. I do think a lot of times customers find their problem and the problem is resolved for them, and so we don't always hear back from them. Right.
Mayor, I was going to bring it up when we got over to old business, but I'll bring it up now. Facebook, the water complaint that's on Facebook. So they were on there, and I just happened to scroll through it and read through it, and they were talking about, didn't feel like the city council was getting answers for them, that they weren't getting answers and those type, frustration, bottom line, frustration. So I just put a comment on there, if anybody had a water bill, they want to send it to me, send it to, official email for the city. And I actually did get 27 emails with their water bills here. What I would like to see done with these is the water company actually take these, the board, probably maybe it needs to go to the board too, but the board to evaluate these, actually take a look at them, evaluate them. There's some of them that do have those strange spikes in them. Maybe some of these customers, you've gotten it taken care of and it's been done and we don't know about it, but to take these, actually take a deep dive into these, give us a report on each one of them, as well as to get back to that customer and give them a actual report that you can hand back to them. So we've got something tangible. Because we don't have so many questions, you're trying to do something, but look how many questions have been thrown at you
Sure.
from us
Mhm.
because we're getting the questions put to us, and the city council is limited on what we're going to be able to do. So I would really like for these to be answered. I took a look at them, brief look at them. I can't answer them. I can't answer the questions for them, but I can feel the frustrations that the customers are having.
Sure.
I think, as she said earlier, a lot of it is the confidence is broken down with the water company, and they don't feel confident with the water company anymore. And I know that's part of the reason what you're here for, is to try to build that confidence up. But they have so frustrated that they've got to have clear, precise answers. And like you said, maybe some of them drop off when they think, oh yeah, I found my leak, well, never mind. And so then they're hanging in limbo. But if these few people went to sending me their water bills, then I think they need answers. And I mean, I encourage people to go to you all and answer. We have some people that say, you know, they didn't get courteous responses. Well, maybe that's because frustration was in the middle of it. Because I know how that happens in customer relationship when everybody's kind of frustrated. But to take these people seriously, and I think the bottom line is these people want to be taken seriously, that they've got a problem, whether it's something that can be fixed, cannot be fixed, is on their side of the fence or on your side of the fence.
Right.
They want to be taken seriously, listened to, looked at, each individual person. Now, I know when you got 15,000 water customers, that's a lot of responsibility on you all, but I think that's what they're asking for, and I think that's what we want, to know that our folks have been listened to, have been understood, have been related to, have been told, and that we are not being able to give them good, solid answers. We've got to know what's going on so we can give them back good, solid answers and not say, like your presentation before, your toilet is leaking. That's not a good, solid answer for them. And some of them in this, they said they had plumbers come out and the plumbers give them a clean bill of health. And maybe some of them you've adjusted their pricing with them and we don't know that yet. But I want to, my emails, I'm going to send them on to Tracy, because I want to make sure everything's, whatever our open records request has to be confidential, all that. I'll send them on to Tracy, but I'm going to ask either the mayor to ask you all to do this, or the council, if we need to take a more formal action, to ask you to take a serious look at least these that have been sent and evaluate them and come back with us to an evaluation on each one of the bills, and to the customer, and let them know what your evaluation is on each one of these bills that they've sent. Maybe there's legitimacy to it, maybe there's not. But they need answers, straight answers, and we want straight answers so that we can talk to them.
Right.
So Mayor, I will send my emails on to Tracy, and if you would do that and send it on to the board and to the water company, that would be great. If not, we'll look at it next week after all. I want all the council too to have the availability to look at the emails and let them see all the emails and see what they've got. Because I think Todd and I got a couple of them that were the same, but I don't know if anybody else got any, if they copied any of you all on. I didn't pay attention to it. So.
Okay. Any more on usage update?
We just have one last slide if you don't care to go forward too. This is just the last 3 months. I think we're going to try and keep this quarterly once we get all of the data, but you can kind of see where our residential usage falls each month.
Okay. All right. Let's now go to I, which is Clary Construction Company for $271,258.20.
Yeah, so this is something that we're bringing back to the council. I just wanted to update you and let you know that our board chose to not take action on this and defer to the council. In the packets that were provided, there's also a cost justification for the price that Chase had brought last meeting. Are there any questions after reviewing those?
So what are we approving? Are we approving, this is in relationship with the cabins, right?
Correct, yes.
Oh,
So
turn it
this option, the 271 avoids both cabins, goes completely around both cabins.
So the cabins stay right where they are and
Correct.
we work around it?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Mayor.
Yes.
I believe in public comments, someone asked the question, what would be the cost of moving them versus this right here?
So if we chose to move the leach cabin, we could pick it up, move it, do the work, pick it up and put it back, leave the other cabin untouched. That would be $80,000, and that's for a slowdown in production for the company having to move to work around that northern or the one by the utility company.
So this right here is asking to not move the cabins and work around both of them.
Correct. Yes, so this one is as requested. There is that other option of moving it and putting it back.
And the water board deferred to council.
And the original quote had us moving both cabins.
Correct.
So if we went ahead and moved both cabins, it would be the $200,000 plus, as well as the 85?
So if we did it as bid, there would be no change order.
Right.
No change in the cost.
Okay,
Correct.
that's it.
Yeah, so the 200 is just to work around it completely. The 80 is if we want to move, leach, and put it back.
Mayor, if I could, one quick question on this. Mr. Holman brought up earlier the horizontal line boring. And again, I know that for a smaller line, it would not be near as bad, but we're talking a 42-inch line. And would that have to be a concrete in place line as they're boring it, or would we be able to use the PVC pipe that we're currently have in place?
So the horizontal directional drilling would be very difficult on a gravity sewer line of this size, because it comes from the surface, goes down, curves, comes back up to the surface, goes back down again, and we have to lay these lines perfectly to grade for the sewer to flow through them correctly. We also have the bore and jack option, which we are doing under Main Street already, so we do have a bid in hand per foot that we did look at. So if we did want to do trenchless, we could go through the entire park, but that would be an increase of cost of $1.7 million. If we wanted to just get past leach cabin doing trenchless, based off the bid in hand that we already have the contractor for, it would be $680,000 in additional cost.
Okay, thank you.
Another question. I believe at the last council meeting, we asked for tourism and Parks and Rec to chime in, and we did receive that feedback.
Yes, we did. And I think we sent that to you.
Yes.
Yes, we got it. We got it, and the feedback was that, this really is gonna be our decision here.
Right.
And they don't really, Parks and Rec don't really gonna actually adhere to what we're putting on, what we wanna do with this,
Right.
so, and
tourism did not have an issue.
no, not at all. All right, so we're looking at I here, the construction costs, and I know you had a lot to talk about here. So the $271,000, this is the additional, is that correct?
That is the additional for the change order to go
So if
around.
so this is
both
a change
cabins.
order of $271,000, do that,
Correct.
okay? Otherwise, we go as is, that's correct?
There is the $80,000
$80,000.
option.
Okay.
So we have three options.
All right, so first of all, we're gonna look at this option here first. I guess we need to make a motion on this option here first. Do you want to do the $271,000? So do I have a motion here? All right. Okay. The other option would be to doing the 80,000 one. Okay, to make that change. Do I have a motion for that?
Mayor, and that's setting the cabin over and setting it right back.
That's correct.
What is the schedule impact of that one that you mentioned?
A week. They would be delayed a week for them to have to work around the other cabin. And that's where the $80,000 comes from.
The original quote had them moving that cabin. It's in the original quote, but not moving it back.
leach cabin would have moved to where the other one was
That's
sitting.
right.
And then
Instead,
move-
it's moving back.
Yeah, and then moving the other one out.
And moving the
Yes.
other one out, and they would have been able to do that work with the other one having been moved out, so.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. So,
So, does this inaction, does it say that we will go back to the original contract, or do we need to make a motion to adhere to the original contract, or what do we need to do from here?
the original contract, if I'm understanding it, is that was the one where we're moving both cabins. Moving one here, the leach cabin moves to where the other cabin is, when we got from Shelbyville.
Correct.
That one will actually be disassembled or whatever and moved out.
Correct.
And if it was any kind of, but it has to be surplus, if he was to give it to another agency, like for instance, I think Stamping Ground had asked about that, if it was be able, to be moved and be in one piece, they would take it. And so all this first one was, the original was doing that.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
So I have one more question about just logistics. In the original contract, it said to move the leach cabin to the spot where the other cabin was when everything was finished. Would the cost remain the same if instead we put it back where it was, instead of moving it over where the second cabin?
Would you be leaving the other cabin in that scenario?
Yes.
I think we decided
Yes.
we weren't going to leave it there because we said we weren't going to spend $80,000. Nobody would second spending $80,000 to move it and
No.
move it back.
No,
No.
we didn't, the 271,000 is what we voted no on doing.
We didn't
that.
vote no, we just didn't get a motion.
We didn't get a motion,
Didn't
but
make a motion.
basically, we were not concerned about
Right,
that.
right.
But I think, because if there needed to be a motion on doing the 80,000 to just move, keep both cabins on the location, move one over, move one back, I would make the motion for that. But the original to get rid of both the cabins, personally, I don't think I'm for that. I'd rather keep both cabins down here and just get the one scooted over while we were doing the work and then put it back.
But the cabin by the utility on that end of the park needs substantial work
Right.
to even make it safe.
Right.
Yes.
And if in fact you did the original plan of removing the cabin on the south end and moved the leach cabin to the south end, then you would no longer have a sewer line under any cabin because it would be next to the new location of the leach cabin. So there would be no need to make any other changes to the contract, just continue with what the original contract was.
But that would be a council action as to what you want to do with that one on the far end near the utility building, because that would be council action, either to one, if you could move it and be surplus out, you got to figure out where we go with that, or you're going to actually just move it and destroy it, whatever, from there. So that's also two things you have to consider. Yes?
Okay. To be clear, if we go back to the original where that second cabin that's in rough shape, they will be disassembling it, and we can say later where we want them to take it.
Well,
Or if it's pieces and we do whatever, because the leach cabin's gonna be in its spot.
right.
Okay, is
And
that
if-
what we all understand?
And
Is
if,
that what we wanna do?
yeah, the original contract. And also just the thought that if, let's say they going to move it, and let's say if Stamping Ground wanted that and it was in good shape, we have to surplus that out.
And that
Go
could be
ahead.
made, that decision can be made later.
Yes.
Yeah, so no matter if that cabin is anywhere aside from in city ownership, on city-owned property, whether that's Royal Spring Park or elsewhere, the council will have to declare it surplus, whether it is being donated to another government agency, whether it is being declared of I don't want to say of no value because that's insensitive, but just in terms of maybe it's not reconstructible, something like that. So regardless, the council will have to take action through a municipal order if it is anywhere other than in city ownership. So I know this is all very tied to this project, but if you all want to approach it more in terms of what your intent is with the cabins, I know the Leach cabin is in better shape than the Shelbyville cabin, but it still requires some work. And I know you had talked about looking into repairs, and that was part of the message from tourism was maintaining focus on that Leach cabin and potentially investing a little bit in maintenance to allow for those tours, because as of now, we don't allow tours in those, even in the Leach cabin, the better conditioned one. So, obviously, action is offered tonight on this change order as requested by you all, but if there's council discussion more on the policy level about what to do with specifically the Shelbyville cabin, I think that's something, we can be prepared to draft a municipal order, whether that's, keeping it within the city, whether it's moving it and putting it right back, or whether it's donating to another agency. That doesn't have to be part of this project proper. As the contract is written right now, absent a change order, that one is planned to go off-site in some way declared by the council.
And that's what it sounded like we wanted to see happen, right? Because I just want to make clear that if we take no action for what is asked for here, we're saying that we're going back to the original intent of the contract and moving forward.
Unless you take that other option, which still
Right.
has a cost, but not as
Right.
exorbitant, yeah.
Which is the option.
Which is the
that-
80,000.
Yes, which actually is the option that I would prefer and be able to keep both cabins. But yes, we'll have to go back later and revamp those cabins and fix them up, which I think we should. But that would be the option that I would like. So I'm going to just go, so we can just go on and move on. I'm going to put a motion on the table that we accept the $80,000 to, $81,000 to go, move the cabin over, the Leach cabin over, and then put the cabin back. So I made a motion. So now we need a second and do whatever. or
Okay,
not.
so a motion's been made to take the Leach cabin, move it over, lay the piping, then put it back. Nothing will be done at the one on the far end. That's the motion. And that's going to be $80,000 to do that.
At which the leach cap would be sitting on top of sewer pipe.
Okay? So that's the motion, okay? Do I have a second?
No, it wouldn't be sitting on
Yeah.
no, the 80,
That's not, yeah, the 80 was for the 80,000 was for the Shelbyville.
No.
Sorry,
No?
can I
No.
clarify really quick?
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
Clarify, please.
So the 80,000 is if we wanted to leave the Shelbyville cabin completely untouched and they work around it, but then that Leach cabin would have to be moved, we'd have to lay pipe under it, and then we would be moving it back.
That's correct.
So it would be on top of it.
Right.
Correct.
Okay, so now, okay, we have a motion made. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, second has been made to the change order to actually be 80,000, to actually take the Leach cabin and move it, run the pipe, put it back. Nothing happens to the far end cabin there. All right, that's the second. Now, any questions and or comments?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, this will be brief. I take it if there is a problem and the cabin falls apart during the move, we'll just probably put it in in the garage or something, let Mr. Bruin take care of it, and then we'll try and reassemble it. Is that what the plan is, just in case if it falls apart?
Well, I believe if in the transition, if something was happening, and according to what we're talking about, we'll make our effort to put it back in. And it was mentioned in the last meeting. Yes.
Okay.
All right?
And we don't know what the expense of that would be, but it would be something to just kind of consider, should that occur.
Okay.
But before we vote yes on this, or no, if we vote yes on this, then it means that the Leach cabin will have the pipe under it. So if we don't want that to happen, the one that's good shape, the best shape, and has the most history here, if we just leave the contract alone, it's going to move to the other spot which doesn't have the pipe under it. And then we can decide what to do with the one that's falling apart. They take it away, and we, as a council, later on, see what happens when they take it away. And then we decide from there if we want to spend, at that time, if we want to spend $80,000 to fix it up, or $10,000 or $2,000 and move it to another location, or give it to Stamping Ground. We decide at that point. But if what we're voting on now is whether or not we leave the leach cabin where it ends up where it is with pipe under it, and the one that's in bad shape moves away and moves back. Okay.
I just want to be clear. Now, one doesn't move away.
No, yeah.
One stays exactly where it is and goes They go around around. it. The other one does move. What we're voting on is that there'll be 2 cabins doing Royal Springs Park versus 1 cabin.
Okay. All right, now that everybody's clear on that, all right, let's, so a motion was made, properly second, and had discussion. All right, so all those in favor of Ms. Sam's motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, wait a minute. So we got, okay, I'm going to do that the old-fashioned way. I'm going to let you show your hands, please. All right? Those who voted, say aye. Here we go. Got 3, 4. Thank you. Against this, it's nay.
No.
If you raise your hand, please. 1, 2, 3. We got 5 to 3. Is that correct?
I thought you said 4 the first time.
Like I said,
4 in favor of.
4. Oh, man, it should be 5 in favor.
No, you said
Oh, I'm sorry.
3 of them were for the motion.
Yeah, okay, now.
So 3 to 5.
3 to 5. Okay, so we got 3 to 5. So you got 5 versus 3 is against this. So that math went down real good. All right, so.
Can I say one more thing, too, that we could do is if they move it away, it doesn't mean it goes away forever. If, when the park is finished and we say, we got this in Robert's garage, let's get it out and put it back together over there, we can do that if that's what we decide. And it might cost a lot less than $80,000 to do it. So this wasn't anybody saying that they didn't want the cabins to be there. But there's just other ways to, let's.
Okay, all right, now we got that taken care of. Okay, we can now move on to the next one, which is the J, which is Water Distribution Services Information. Go ahead.
So this is part of our educational initiative. We're trying to educate our employees across departmental, our board, council, and the community on kind of what each of our departments do. So I had the pleasure of working with our distribution team this month and getting some footage and kind of showing you guys what they do in and day out. So if you want to, I believe it's the last slide of the presentation. I will sit down and let you watch this.
Every day, thousands of homes and businesses in Georgetown rely on safe, reliable drinking water. Behind the scenes, the distribution department at Georgetown Municipal Water and Sewer Service works continuously to ensure that water reaches every customer safely and efficiently. The distribution team plays a critical role in protecting public health, maintaining essential infrastructure, and supporting fire protection throughout the community. In 2026, the distribution department operates with a team of 9 employees. This includes 1 supervisor, 1 assistant supervisor, 1 cross-connection officer, and 6 distribution operators. To ensure the system is monitored at all times, 8 members of the team participate in a 24-hour on-call rotation, 365 days a year. 2 operators are on call each week from Friday to Friday, serving as first and second call on a rotating schedule. This structure ensures that trained personnel are always available to respond quickly to emergencies such as water main breaks, service line leaks, or other system issues. The distribution team performs all operations and maintenance work in-house. Their responsibilities include tap installations, meter installations and readings, repairing water main breaks, fixing service line leaks, maintaining and repairing hydrants and valves, conducting leak detection throughout the system, managing the cross-connection and backflow prevention program, and inspecting water storage tanks and pump stations. Handling these operations internally allows the department to respond quickly, control costs, and maintain high operational standards. Infrastructure maintained by the distribution department is extensive and continues to grow as the community develops. The system currently includes 446.1 miles of water main that deliver treated drinking water throughout the service area. If those pipes were laid end-to-end, they would stretch nearly the entire distance from Georgetown, Kentucky to Niagara Falls, New York. The department serves more than 16,156 customer accounts, with new connections being added regularly as Georgetown continues to expand. Fire protection is supported through the maintenance of 1,718 fire hydrants located across the system. In addition, the system includes 5,830 main line valves that allow crews to isolate sections of pipe when repairs or maintenance are needed. Proper valve operation is essential for minimizing service interruptions and maintaining system pressure during repairs. Water storage is provided through 5 elevated and ground storage tanks with a combined capacity of approximately 2.55 million gallons. These tanks help maintain system pressure, provide water during peak demand, and support fire protection throughout the distribution system. The Whitaker tank holds 750,000 gallons. The Lancaster tank holds 600,000 gallons. The Johnson's tank holds 500,000 gallons. The Burton tank holds 500,000 gallons. And the Stamping Ground tank holds 200,000 gallons. The distribution system is also supported by pump stations that help maintain adequate water pressure and system flow. The Frankfort and Long Lick pump stations are currently active and operating as part of the system, while the Lloyd Road pump station is currently offline. Routine maintenance and inspections are essential to keeping the system operating reliably. Water storage tanks, pump stations, and automatic flushing valves are inspected on a monthly basis to ensure proper operation and identify potential issues early. In addition, the department conducts hydrant flushing twice each year to remove sediment from water mains, improve water quality, and verify that hydrants are functioning properly for emergency use. When water main breaks occur, distribution crews respond quickly to locate and assess the problem. Safety is always the first priority. Crews secure the work area, implement traffic control, and contact underground utility locates before excavation begins. Once the break is located, valves are operated to isolate the affected section of pipe while maintaining system pressure. Whenever possible, crews excavate the damaged pipe and complete the repair, which may involve installing repair clamps or replacing pipe sections. After repairs are completed, the system is flushed and bacteriological samples are collected to ensure water quality before the line is returned to full service. In addition to maintaining infrastructure, the distribution team installs and maintains customer water meters used to measure water usage and support accurate billing. As the system continues to modernize, advanced metering infrastructure, or AMI technology, is being pursued to allow remote meter readings, improve efficiency, and help identify leaks earlier within the system. Distribution personnel are licensed, water professionals certified by the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Their training ensures that the system is operated according to regulatory requirements and industry standards. Through daily maintenance, system monitoring, and rapid emergency response, the distribution department helps ensure that Georgetown residents and businesses continue to receive safe, dependable drinking water every day.
All right, now, let's look at the others now. Let's go to, I'll start with C, and like I said, what we'll do with C through H, what we'll do is go through each one of these, and you just, if you need to tell us a little bit about it, can, and then when we finish those, then we can actually make a motion to accept all of these at one time. The first one's item 11C, C&R Asphalt LLC for $12,100.
Yeah, so we did a sewer line replacement project on Church Street. Because of the city ordinance, we need to pave curb to curb, so that's what this PO is for.
All right. And D is Stanford Pump and Supply Incorporated for $24,556.
Yeah, so this is replacement RAS pumps for wastewater treatment plant number 3. The current pumps have been repaired and retapped enough times that they're nearing unrepairable, and so we are going to replace all 3 of the pumps. 2 of those pumps are original to the plant and nearing the end of their useful service life anyways.
Thank you. The next one was Lane Christian Company for $35,755.
Yeah, so this is for the water treatment plant. It's for our flash mix, which is the chemicals for pre-treatment, for disinfection and coagulation in the process. The original mixer, I think, is from the 1970s.
Thank you. Next one is Xylem Water Solutions USA Incorporated for $71,525.
So this is water treatment plant, or wastewater treatment plant number 2. So this is their carbon and resin pump. They have looked into rebuilding the pump, and it's 60% of the cost of a new pump to rebuild it, and so they'd like to just pursue the new pump. We have one functioning right now, but for required redundancies, we have to have 2 pumps.
Okay. Item G, which is Judy Construction Incorporated for $103,419.
This is a change order for wastewater treatment plant number 1. Originally, we didn't have the pipe gallery and the SBR climate controlled. After going through a season, we've come to realize that we do need climate control due to some pipes freezing, et cetera.
And then H is Judy Construction Incorporated for $171,525.50.
So this is pay app number 59 for the wastewater treatment plant number 1 to Judy.
All right. You have heard those requests. Do I have a motion to accept all of these?
Motion, Mayor.
Motion made by Mr. Stone. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second made by Mr. Hampton. All those in favor of accepting these requests signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Let the record reflect it has passed. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Item,
Mayor, before you go to the next one, we take about a 5-minute break.
great, so you make a motion to do that?
I'll make a motion.
Motion to take a 5-minute break. Second. Motion made by Ms. Sames. Do I have a second? By Mr. Minke. Are there any questions and/or comments? All those in favor of this motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. All right. see, everybody make sure you got your microphones on if you're going to speak and off if you're not. At this time, I need a motion to go back into regular session. Motion made by Ms. Sams. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second made by Ms. Brent. Are there further questions and or comments? All those in favor of this motion to go back into regular session signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Let the record reflect we're back into session. All right, next is on the item is item 12, City Engineer Municipal Order 2026 Unit Price Contracts.
Mayor?
Yes.
I'd like to make another motion to lump these together and hear them at once and then take a vote on all.
All righty. Okay, so that would be items A, B, C, and D will be all after we hear from each. I will introduce each one and let him tell what this is, and then at the end, we will then take a motion and then a second, and then we will then go ahead and approve all of them. Well, okay, so motion is made, you second properly here. Are there further questions and or comments? All those in favor of making this motion to look at all A, B, C, and D, and then at the end, accepting those and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Okay, Eddie, if you're ready, go with item A, asphalt material supply and delivery,
Yes.
Hamilton Hinkle Paving Company.
Okay, so this first one is the asphalt material supply and delivery. That's for asphalt and also rock products, crushed rock and that sort of thing, crushed stone, for us to either buy it for our use through a truck, we'll go out there and pick it up, or through the contract for paving. We use it for both items.
Okay. Item B, asphalt construction, Hamilton Hinkle Paving Company.
So that's asphalt construction is actually laying the blacktop down, milling and paving of the surface of the roads for our street repairs and our street program.
Item C, paving striping, Hamilton Hinkle Paving Company.
That's used for when we do street resurfacing and we have to put back what is already there. So the center lines, the edge lines, parking stalls, arrows, turn arrows, all those sorts of things are paid for through that contract.
And item D, which is concrete construction, Humphrey Concrete LLC.
Yes, sir. So that's the Sidewalk 50/50 program, curb and gutter, stormwater tops, anything that's formed and placed concrete in place. We use that construction contract for that.
All righty, you have heard the request. Do I have a motion?
Motion, Mayor.
Motion made by Mr. Stone. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second made by Ms. Sames. Is there any questions and or comments?
Mayor, just a quick question. So on the 50/50 sidewalk
Mhm.
thing, so when will that be announced or?
Well, it's current through June 30th, and then I would ask to try and renew it next year in my budget, assuming that, gets approved through the city council. We would continue with the program to allow for sidewalk replacement projects to be done.
So there is potential to do that in this first section through June or not till after?
Yeah, it's an active program, so we do them every day. We currently have a whole list of projects, for him to go ahead and do, and we've been doing them, throughout the whole year.
We've
Since
been doing it
last
for
June
several
30th.
years, I think.
Yeah. We've done it for the last 3 or 4 years in a row, continue, because it's been a successful program. People like getting their sidewalks fixed, and this gives them some relief where the city pays half and the homeowner pays half.
So do we have a priority list of those?
Yeah, we have a list of a whole bunch of sidewalks that need to be fixed, and we send out letters when we find them, and we tell them about the program, and they generally volunteer to want to participate. That's how I do it.
Okay. Any other questions? All those in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Let the record reflect it is passed. Item 13, 13A, quarterly update.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm here to present the quarterly update for the quarter ending December 31st. Apologize, I'm a little delayed on this one. Time got away from me. So if we'll go to skip the next slide. This screen is just an update on our fund balance. This is, even though this is our quarterly update through 12/31, on this particular slide, I did go ahead and incorporate the budget amendment that you adopted, I believe, in February. So the top half of this slide didn't change at all. Well, the projected use of reserves for this fiscal year went to $4.4 million. So our projected fund balance in the general fund at June 30, 26 is 27.4. And then at the bottom, this is calculating what our fund balance minimum is per our policy. So our projected expenditures for the year are just under 51.6 million after the last budget amendment. 30% of that is just under 15.5. So that is what we would keep in our minimum fund balance, barring any action from council, which leaves us with approximately 11.9 million to do some of those capital projects. Obviously, when it comes time to present you with a construction contract for Fire Station 4, purchasing apparatus for Fire Station 4, and some other things, I'm sure we will be recommending to use cash balance for some of those projects and possibly some of those other quality of life, but we'll want to continue, we'll present a more strategic plan with that as we get into the next year budget preparation. So, but as of June 30, 26, we expect that we should have 11.9 million at the end of this year that could be used for future one-time expenses. Okay. Next, the following couple of slides, you received a line item revenue and expense report. That's where I pulled the information from this slide from. So that report is ran through everything posted through December 31st of 25. And this just rolls it up. You can see the detail in that line item report. Our revenue budget of 49.3 million through our second quarter, posted revenues of 17.2 million. So our percentage complete is about 35%. Again, a lot of those revenues come in January and February that are attributable to the quarter prior. So they aren't posted as of December 31st. They're posted in January and February. We post on a cash basis and then book accounts receivable at the end of the year. You can see each of our expense categories adding up to a $50.7 million total expenditure budget. And you can see that most of our departments are hovering right on that 50% line, which is what you would expect for halfway through the year. The only one that's over 50% is our community services. That's where we make most of our allocations to the nonprofit agencies and some other things that typically get paid out front end of the year. We pay a lot of that up front. So that's why those are a little more than 50% on that one. Any questions on this?
Mayor. So I guess I'm a little confused about percentage completion. So if it's through the second quarter, they all should be at 50% if we're budgeting on a monthly basis based on trends. So are we not doing that? Are we?
We have typically booked accounts receivable at year end only. That's typically how we've done. We're on a modified accrual basis.
Okay.
So we adjust our year end financials to be modified accrual,
Right.
but essentially operate as if we're a cash basis throughout the year. So that's why, again, a lot of those returns for alcohol, insurance premiums, payroll taxes, they're returns through the month of December, but they're not due until
Right.
January 15th, January 31st. So that's historically how we have
Right.
done that.
So I'm just trying to figure out
Yeah.
how do I use that that data point because it's not a true data point. So I'm not sure what to compare that to.
Yeah. And, again, this format is new, so I could always, provide, it probably in the past, I could provide going forward how that compares to where we were at this time last year, et cetera, for overall, so that you would have more of a historical trend to compare to. But like I said, typically we operate as cash basis throughout the year, and we adjust our financial statements at the end of the year.
So are there any other budget documents that are used to manage each month?
Yes. Yes, I use those. We've done the quarterly updates so far, is what we've done, is on based on a quarter, but I can
Right. Okay,
switch to monthly if we want to. I do have those.
okay.
It seems like in the past that
Yeah.
what you've done is, or at least what I do is look to see if we're one quarter in, it should be 25, everything should be at 25%.
Yes.
And you provide a detail.
And that is on the
In
next
writing,
slide.
if
for those.
it's not supposed to be tracking, or
Yeah.
like, this looks bad, but that's because everything comes in at the end of the year and it'll, you get
Yeah.
used to that as you have experience.
Yeah.
And you provide the detail if it doesn't look normal.
Right, and that's why I
like you
have the
did.
note on here that the following revenues, that this only includes revenue posted through 12/31.
Right.
And that the following revenue slides, which are on the next ones, do include, I've gone back and manually accounted for that revenue that was included. So let's go on to the next one. So for our major revenue sources, these are the reports that I have always provided you all for our major revenue sources, but I've just screenshotted the reports to put them in the presentation. So employee withholding, which is our largest revenue category, budgeted at 22.8 million. For this one, as I've mentioned on the note below, I went ahead and pulled the information that we received in January through December. And so through the first half of the year, we had collected just over $10 million, which was 44% of the budget. And that's a little under 50%, but we still have one more 3 pay period month in that. January was a 3 pay period month, so when you get the update for the quarter ending March 31st, that should look a little more, hopefully closer to 50%. And then obviously you have our months at the end of the year when we book our receivables. But you can see that we're running, as of right now, about $784,000 ahead of where we were at this time last year.
So do we know, is that because of higher wages or larger number of employees paying in, or?
I do not have that detail. I know what we collect from the Revenue Commission, but I don't have the detail behind, so I don't have that. I can get it.
Can we get it? Yeah.
Yeah, I can
Because
ask
that-
Scott if he
again,
can
that
provide that
gives
information.
us
I'm not sure if he'll have it,
information. Yeah.
but he would have the wages and the percentage.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll see if he's able to get that data for me. Okay, the next is the net profits. Sorry, my pages are stuck together. So for net profits, we budget $4 million. Through December, we had collected $500,000, which is about 13% of our budget. We are about $60,000 ahead of last year, but obviously, as you know, with tax filing deadlines, most taxes are due by April 15th. So we will get the bulk of that coming up in the next couple of months as the majority of those tax returns are filed.
so what about overpayments that are just carried over?
Yes. At the end of last year, I don't know the number off the top of my head, it was a little over $3 million. It was between $3 and $4 million at June 30, 25 that we had in overpayments. And what we started doing as of, I know the recommendation of one of the last audits, we have started booking that as a liability rather than a reduction of the receivable. So each year we will adjust that liability as that number changes. So that's why those first 3 years in the history, you see those large amounts in July, but rather than taking that revenue at the end of the year, assuming in July that it's going to be revenue for this year, we're just adjusting it through at the end of the year. So As of June 30, 25, it was between 3 and 4 million of overpayments, which was less than the year before. The year before, it was over 6 million. So the overpayments did decrease. The next slide, please. The insurance premium taxes, again, this is one that's collected on a quarterly basis. Our budget was 8.8 million. For the first 2 quarters, we've collected approximately 4.2 million, which is 48% of the budget. This is one that I will say, the final quarter of the year typically seems to be our higher collection month, so I would anticipate that holding true. Right now, we're running about 97,000 ahead of where we were at this time last year. And I do want to make just the one overall comment that we still budgeted our revenues conservatively for fiscal year 26, but we also tried to be more realistic with our growth. So it may not look like we're running as far ahead in comparison as we did in previous years because we budgeted conservatively, but also tried to be realistic with growth. Typically, I'm very conservative when budgeting revenue. So just wanted to make that note as well. And lastly, property taxes. Of course, we collect the majority of our property taxes prior to January 1. We budgeted $2,989,000. We collected through December $2,852,000, which was 95% of the budget.
So on that one, do we know what PVA actually billed for city?
Tracy actually does we get the assessment from the PVA.
Right.
Tracy does the billing. I can get a total of those bills from her. I don't have the number off the top of my head. Obviously, some of that could be past tax bills as well,
sure.
But I will get that number from
Right.
Tracy.
But that would then give us compliance rate as well, so.
Yes, I'm sure we can find a report in the new system that will tell us that information.
Thank you.
And lastly, fiscal year 25-26, other funds budget progress as of 12/31/25. The dispatch fund revenue, approximately 43% complete. The expenditures are just at 40%. We do have vacancies in that department, so that's probably why they're trending a little lower. The alcohol fund revenue, again, we've got 1 quarter in there at 25%. The quarter ending December 31st, all of that money would have been collected after December 31st. And the expenditures are at approximately 52%. What we do for that is each quarter run the payroll history for police department, for law enforcement officers, and city clerk's office. The police department, we allocate 14.5% of our officers to this fund. For the city clerk's office, we allocate about 25% of their salaries for being the ABC administrators. Stormwater expenditures, at 1.4 million budget, spent about 82, that's about 5.7. There's a lot of projects in the pipelines right now. About almost 500,000 of that budget is one singular project that hasn't started yet, so keep that in mind when you're looking at that budget comparison as well. The cemetery revenue, the reason that's so low is we wait till we get to the end of the year to see what our revenues are from lot sales, interments, cremations, compare that with the expenses, and whatever the difference is, the city and county contribute. So the city and county put their contributions in at the end of the year. So that's why their revenue looks so low compared to what's budgeted. And the cemetery expenditures are at about 34%. Out of that $760,000 budget, there is a $200,000 that was budgeted for land purchase. We are working on some different avenues to see if we're able to transfer those land and water conservation restrictions potentially to property that might be purchased by another local government. If not, we'll continue carrying that $200,000 forward until we've reached a final conclusion on that.
Yeah.
Any other questions on that? And then lastly, this is just the same summary that I've provided you in the past on the alcoholic beverage regulatory fees. Again, I went ahead and took the money that was collected in January, February, and early March for the quarter ended December 31st. So we're at $704,966, budgeted $1.4 million, so we're right at about 50% collected on ABC fees.
Okay, well, Stacy, once again, thank you for bringing that update. I know it's always different when you talk about numbers. I get lost doing my checkbook, but I.
No, that's fine. And I mean, I'll continue, like I said, this is a different format I've used the last couple times, so continue to be welcome to any feedback on how we can, we've got the line item report that runs through essentially cash basis December 31st, and how we can make that comparable so that you have some target percentages to look at.
So item B, which is the municipal order for building inspection vehicle surplus.
Yes. Building inspection has received their 2 new vehicles finally that I think they may have asked for in last year's budget. Took a while to get their 2 new RAV4s. They were hard to find for them. So they are recommending to surplus the 2013 Ford Explorer. They no longer need that. And it will be sold through Enterprises agreement, and any funds from the sale will go towards the lease of the new vehicles.
You have heard the request. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion made by Ms. Sames. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second made by Ms. Brent. Are there further questions and or comments? All those in favor of the motion for municipal order, building inspection, vehicle surplus, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. All right, item C, we've already done. And now go to item D, municipal order, reinvestment of funds with Stockyard Bank and Trust.
Yes, this is all related to our approximately $5 million that is invested with Stockyards Bank. As those maturities, as those securities mature, they live in the cash balance until council takes action. So we have about $600,000 in our cash balance right now for maturities and interest and dividend earnings. Stockyards has requested a little bit more flexibility in how they invest this. It will still be in a mix of U.S. Treasuries, the FDIC, taxable municipal bonds, anything allowed under KRS 66.480, and they will invest it in maturities from 1 to 5 years to give a target yield of 3.75 to 4.25%. They just ask for that little bit of flexibility so that when they go to buy the securities for our account, they can choose what is most advantageous on that day that will give us the best rate on that day. And Finance Committee did recommend to bring this proposal to council.
Thank you. Okay, motion made by Ms. Mitchell then. Okay, thank you. And do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hampton. Are there further questions and or comments? All in favor of the municipal order, reinvestment of funds with Stockyard Bank and Trust Company, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Thank you, Stacy, as always.
I'm going to stay up here for police.
Oh, you're going to stay up for police too? Okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right.
If I have
then.
any technical questions, Chief will try to help me out.
All right, then that item A, resolution for Law Enforcement Protection Program, LEPP, application.
Yes, typically, we don't bring grants to council for approval that don't require a match, but this particular grant application requires a resolution from council to apply. So this is for ammunition of $33,664.
Motion.
Motion made by Ms. Sames. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second made by Ms. Hambrick. Are there further questions and or comments? All in favor of the resolution, Law Enforcement Protection Program, LEPP, application, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Item B, resolution, Kentucky 911 Service Board, 2026 grant application.
Yes. The 911 Center had a phone system replacement in their budget this year. We had to redirect those funds to some other projects that came up throughout the year. They were anticipating requesting that in next year's budget, but with some help from Karen, they have discovered a grant that could help fund this. So we have a quote from AT&T just on what that cost might be. So we have a requesting approval to apply for that grant. It's a total estimated project cost of $132,000. They recommend a 10% share match to make your application more favorable, even though it's not a required match. So that 10% would be a $13,200 match, which leaves $118,800 in the funding request.
All righty.
Motion.
Motion made by Ms. Sains. Do I have a second? Second made by Mr. Stone. Are there further questions and/or comments?
Mayor?
Yes.
Just quickly. So in this application, have we built in the growth because of the feasibility study that we're doing and all of that for down the road?
I can try to get you an answer for that. I don't know that one off the top of my head, as I haven't been working with the application myself, but I'll ask what they've done.
Yeah, just so that we don't run into a situation where we get a system and then you can't
Yeah.
expand it.
Yeah.
I've run into that before.
All right. Any other questions and/or comments? All those in favor of the resolution, Kentucky 911 Service Board 2026 grant application, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Thank you, Stacy. Are you up here for one more?
No, I think.
You done?
everyone's taken it.
All right, you've had enough. Okay, next is
I
item
give her a
15.
break.
Item 15, Public Works, municipal order for sweeper truck.
Woo-hoo.
Yeah, Mayor, Council, thank you. I just want an approval to, with Stringfellow, to purchase a new sweeper truck, $350,223.70. And if there's any questions, I'll answer them.
Motion made by Ms. Stone and second by Ms. Mitchell. Public Works, okay. Are there questions and/or comments? I think it's something's long overdue.
Yep.
All those in favor of this motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Let the.
Thank y'all.
All right. Next, council discussions, old business. If there's any old business to be addressed. All right, new business. All right, this leads to item 17. Council comments. Mr. Chris, I'm gonna start with you since I'm looking at you first. Okay, Ms. Sames.
Just thank you, Mayor, for taking a few minutes out for us to talk about the emails with the water, with the concerns from our citizens, and hopefully we can get a few more answers for them because they're confused and would like answers, and I've been confused on it too, so I'd like some answers.
All right. Yes, Mr. Menke.
Thank you, Mayor. Since it wasn't mentioned earlier, I just thought I'd take the opportunity to acknowledge Toyota had their 40th anniversary, and several of the council folks and the mayor were in attendance today. 40 years here in the community, and some great announcements there, education announcements, as well as another vehicle being announced today as well for the future of TMMK. But 2 grants, a $4 million expansion of the driving possibilities for Scott County and Fayette County for our youth, and then a manufacturing engineering program at EKU for another $400,000. Just the impact of Toyota, it's a $11 billion total investment, over 10,000 team members. They've built more than 15 million vehicles and more than 17 million engines, and contributed back into the community over the course of those 40 years, over 164 million into the community. So just to put that on record.
All right. Ms. Hamburg.
I want to echo the Toyota. It was an inspiring couple of hours at the plant celebrating the genesis in 1986 of the Toyota plant. And the $4 million for Scott County Schools it's an amazing grant, and it should be widely applauded. And yeah, thank you, Mayor.
I'm good.
Ms. Brent?
I'm good, thank you.
Mr. Hampton.
Just as Karen said, just want to encourage everyone, if they have issues with their water bills, contact them so they can get that data, so that we can get the information that we need to help everyone out. Also, thank you for your quick response today on the drainage issue or the on General John Payne, getting that worked out. And I just had a question, and it'd be very brief. The builder of those two homes in that area, as I understand it, he was responsible for fixing that. And it never happened, but he gained a certificate of occupancy for those homes before it was fixed, or before he completed the work. So, that's just a question that I've been asked. How did he get a CO without that work being complete? So,
Thank you. All right, Ms. Mitchell. Mr. Stone.
Thank you, Mayor. Real quick, one thing, I know he's not asked for it yet, but just be prepared, because Eddie brought up the blacktopping, all the materials for the upcoming year. Just kind of have it in your head, potential streets that need paving. He hasn't asked for them yet, but I know it's coming, so not to add any more to his plate, but just keep that in mind, and when time happens, we can get that information to him. That's all I got, sir.
Thank you. If no other business to be brought for this council, this meeting is adjourned.